The key turned in the lock at 2:47 a.m., and Noah Carter found his daughter asleep on the couch again, waiting for him like she did every night. At 7 years old, Lily had learned to fall asleep to the sound of silence, to wake up reaching for a parent who was always either working or sleeping. Noah stood in the doorway of their cramped apartment, oil still under his fingernails, exhaustion carved into every line of his face, and felt the weight of a question he couldn't answer. How much longer could he keep this up? Tonight, tomorrow, next month, it all blurred together into an endless cycle of survival. But when the eviction notice arrived that morning, tucked between overdue medical bills and final warnings from the electric company, Noah realized something had to change. He needed help. He needed money. He needed to do something he swore he'd never do, let a stranger into the only safe space his daughter had ever known. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you about a single father, a mysterious woman, and the quiet moment everything changed. The garage smelled like motor oil and old coffee, a combination Noah Carter had grown so accustomed to that he barely noticed it anymore. His hands moved with practiced efficiency beneath the hood of a '98 Civic, tightening bolts, checking fluid levels, doing the kind of repetitive work that let his mind wander to places he usually tried to avoid. It was 11 at night, and most of the city was winding down. But for Noah, the shift was just beginning. "Carter, you planning to sleep under that thing?" His supervisor, a gruff man named Eddie, who'd owned the garage for 30 years, appeared beside the car with a clipboard. "You've been here since 3 this afternoon." "Double shift," Noah said without looking up. "Need the hours," Eddie grunted, a sound that could have meant anything from approval to concern. "You got a kid at home, don't you?" "She's with Mrs. Chen." Noah straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag that had long since given up being clean. "Neighbor watches her when I work nights." "That's a lot of nights." Noah didn't respond because there wasn't anything to say that Eddie didn't already know. Single father, dead-end job, bills that multiplied faster than he could pay them. It was a story as old as struggle itself, and Noah had stopped expecting sympathy for it years ago. Sympathy didn't pay rent. He finished with the Civic around midnight, clocked out, and drove home in his decade-old pickup truck that rattled at every red light. The apartment building was quiet when he arrived, the kind of silence that felt heavy rather than peaceful. Third floor, end of the hall, door that stuck unless you lifted while you turned the key. Home. Lily was asleep on the couch, curled under the blanket Noah had left for her that morning. She'd tried to wait up again. She always tried, even though he'd told her 100 times she needed her sleep for school. At 7 years old, she'd already learned that waiting was a form of love, and it broke something in Noah's chest every time he found her like this. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered, scooping her into his arms. She barely stirred, just made a small sound and pressed her face against his shoulder. "Let's get you to bed." Her room was the only part of the apartment that looked lived in, decorated with drawings she'd made in class and a shelf of books they read together when he had time. Noah tucked her in, brushed hair from her forehead, and stood there longer than he should have, watching her sleep. She looked so much like her mother, it physically hurt sometimes. Same dark hair, same small nose, same way of frowning slightly even in dreams. "Love you, Lilybug," he said quietly, then forced himself to leave before the weight of everything made it impossible to move. In the kitchen, Noah found the stack of mail he'd been avoiding. Bills, mostly. A few collection notices. And there, near the bottom, the thing he'd been dreading. A formal notice from the building management. Rent increase, effective next month. $200 more than he was already struggling to pay. He sat down at the small table, the same one where he and his wife used to plan their future, and did the math he'd been putting off for weeks. Between the garage, the occasional weekend work, and the savings account he'd already depleted for Lily's emergency room visit last year, there wasn't enough. There would never be enough, not with just one income, not in this city, not with the way everything kept getting more expensive while his paycheck stayed the same. The spare room sat empty down the hall, door closed, full of nothing but boxes he'd never unpacked and memories he couldn't quite face. It had been Sarah's office once, the place where she'd worked on her photography, edited images late into the night while Noah brought her coffee and kissed the top of her head. After the accident, Noah had closed the door and hadn't opened it for anything but storage. He looked at it now, that closed door, and felt something shift in his chest, Not acceptance exactly, more like the grim recognition that survival sometimes required sacrifice. The ad went up online the next morning. Room for rent, small but clean, shared kitchen and bathroom, quiet building, $600 month including utilities, references required, available immediately. Noah stared at the posting for a long moment before hitting publish, feeling like he'd just opened a door he could never close again. But Lily needed a roof over her head more than he needed his grief to have its own space, so that was that. The responses came faster than he expected. By lunchtime, his email was full of inquiries, most from people who seemed fine on paper but set off vague alarm bells in his gut. Too eager, too many questions, too much interest in the building's security, or lack thereof. Noah had spent enough years working on cars to trust his instincts about when something didn't sound right, and most of these didn't sound right. He was about to close his laptop and head to pick up Lily from school when one more email arrived. Hello, I saw your listing. I'm looking for a quiet place to stay, somewhere I can just live simply. I work remotely and keep to myself. Clean, responsible, can pay first and last month up front. Would it be possible to see the room this week? Iris Bennett. Something about the message felt different, not desperate, not overly friendly, just straightforward and calm, the kind of communication that suggested someone who knew what they wanted and wasn't trying to perform for it. Noah wrote back before he could overthink it. Available to show the room today after 6 p.m. if that works. The response came within minutes. 6 p.m. works, thank you. That afternoon, Noah picked up Lily from school and tried to explain what was happening without making it sound scary. They sat in the truck in the school parking lot, her backpack still on her lap, her small face serious as she listened. Remember how we talked about money being tight? Noah said carefully. How sometimes grown-ups have to make changes to take care of their families? Lily nodded slowly. She was a perceptive kid, always had been. She'd noticed the way Noah counted change before buying groceries, the way he said no to things other kids' parents said yes to without thinking. Well, we have a spare room in our apartment that nobody uses, and I thought maybe it would help if we let someone stay there for a little while, someone who needs a place to live. Like a roommate? Lily asked. Sort of, yeah. Will they be nice? It was such a simple question, asked with such complete trust that her father would never let anyone mean into their home, and Noah felt the weight of that trust like a physical thing. I'm going to make sure of it, he promised, and if you ever feel uncomfortable, even a little bit, you tell me right away, okay? Okay, Lily said, then paused. Will they like drawing? Because I draw a lot. Noah smiled despite himself. I don't know, Bug. We'll find out. At 5:45 p.m., Noah was cleaning the apartment with an intensity born of anxiety. He'd already cleaned it that morning, but he cleaned it again, wiping down counters that were already spotless, straightening throw pillows that didn't need straightening. Lily helped, or tried to, mostly just moving her toys from one spot to another, while asking questions Noah didn't have answers to. What if they don't like us? She asked, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Then they don't have to stay, Noah said, gentler than he felt. It's our home, Lily. We get to decide who's in it. The knock came at exactly 6 o'clock. Noah opened the door and found himself looking at a woman probably in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and eyes that seemed to take in everything without judgment. She wore jeans and a plain sweater, carried a single bag over her shoulder, and had the kind of calm presence that immediately made the chaotic apartment feel quieter. Noah? She asked. That's me. You must be Iris. I am. She offered a slight smile, professional but not cold. Thank you for making time. Come in. Noah stepped aside, suddenly hyper-aware of every scuff mark on the wall, every toy on the floor. Sorry about the mess. We weren't expecting... we were, but it's fine, Iris said simply, and her tone suggested she meant it. I appreciate you being willing to rent to someone you don't know. I know that's not easy, especially with a child in the home. Noah blinked, surprised by her directness. Most people tiptoed around Lily's existence, not sure how to acknowledge a single father's circumstances. This is Lily, he said as his daughter appeared from her room, curiosity winning over shyness. Lily, this is Ms. Bennett. She's thinking about staying in our spare room. Hi. Lily said quietly, still clutching her rabbit. Iris crouched down to Lily's eye level, which Noah noticed immediately. Most adults towered over kids, talked down to them literally and figuratively. Iris didn't. "Hi, Lily. I like your rabbit. Does it have a name?" "Mr. Hopsworth," Lily said, a little less quiet now. "My mom gave him to me." If Iris registered the past tense, she didn't show it. "Mr. Hopsworth is a very distinguished name. He looks well cared for." "He is." Lily considered Iris carefully. "Are you going to live here?" "I'm not sure yet," Iris said honestly. "Your dad is going to show me the room, and then we'll all decide if it feels right. Does that sound fair?" Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer in a way that made Noah relax slightly. His daughter was a good judge of character, better than he was, honestly. If she seemed okay with Iris, maybe that meant something. "The room's this way," Noah said, leading Iris down the short hallway. He opened the door to reveal a space that was indeed small, but clean, furnished with a bed, a desk, and a dresser he'd moved in that morning. It's not much. Window faces the alley, so it's quiet. Closet's decent-sized. You'd have access to the kitchen and bathroom, obviously. Laundry's in the basement. Iris stepped inside, looked around with the same calm assessment she'd given the rest of the apartment. She checked the window, tested the light switch, opened the closet. Not judging, just observing. "It's perfect," she said after a moment. "Honestly, I was expecting much worse for the price." Noah felt defensive rise in his chest before he understood why. "I'm not trying to take advantage. That's fair market rate for—" "I know," Iris interrupted gently. "I wasn't criticizing. I meant it. This is more than I was hoping for." They stood there in the small room, and Noah found himself studying her the way she'd studied the space. There was something about Iris Bennett that didn't quite add up, though he couldn't put his finger on what. The way she carried herself, maybe. The quality of her clothes, which looked simple but expensive in a way Noah had learned to recognize from his wife's old wardrobe. The kind of calm that usually came from security, from never having worried about rent or bills or where the next meal was coming from. "Can I ask what you do for work?" Noah said, trying to sound casual. "You mentioned remote work." "Consulting," Iris said, which wasn't really an answer. "I help companies restructure their operations. Most of it's done over email and video calls." "And you're looking for a room in a building like this because—" Iris met his eyes directly. "Because I want something simple. Somewhere I can just exist without complications. Is that a problem?" Noah heard the edge in her voice, not hostile but firm, and recognized the tone of someone who'd answered that question too many times before. "No problem," he said. "I just need to make sure this is going to work for Lily. She's my priority." "As she should be." Iris's expression softened. "Look, I understand you don't know me. I'm happy to provide references, background check, whatever makes you comfortable. I'm clean, quiet, and I respect boundaries. I'm not looking for friendship or family dinners or anything like that. Just a place to sleep and work." It should have been reassuring. It was exactly what Noah thought he wanted. Someone who would keep to themselves, not complicate his already complicated life. But something about the way Iris said it, the careful distance in her words, made him sad for reasons he couldn't articulate. "When would you want to move in?" he asked. "Tomorrow, if possible. I can pay 3 months up front. Cash." Noah tried not to show his reaction to that. 3 months up front was $1,800, which would cover the rent increase and give him breathing room he desperately needed. But it also raised more questions about who Iris Bennett really was and why she was here. "Can you give me until tomorrow morning to decide?" he said. "I want to talk to Lily about it first." "Of course." Iris pulled a business card from her wallet, handed it over. It was plain white with just a name, email, and phone number. No company, no title. "Call me either way?" "I will." They walked back to the living room, where Lily had sprawled on the floor with her coloring books. She looked up as they approached. "Did you like the room?" she asked Iris. "I did," Iris said. "Did you want to show me what you're drawing?" Lily's whole face lit up, and before Noah could say anything, she was pulling Iris down to sit beside her on the floor, explaining in rapid detail the elaborate landscape she'd been creating with her markers. Iris listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions about the purple trees and the castle made of clouds. Noah watched them, his daughter animated in a way she usually only was around Mrs. Chen, and felt something complicated twist in his chest. Hope, maybe, or fear that hoping was dangerous. After a few minutes, Iris stood, thanked Lily for showing her the drawings, and headed for the door. Noah followed. "She's a great kid," Iris said quietly. "She is." "I meant what I said. I don't want to disrupt your life. If you decide this isn't right, I understand." "I'll call you tomorrow," Noah promised. After Iris left, Lily immediately launched into an assessment. "She was nice. I liked her. Can she stay?" "You literally just met her, Bug." "But she looked at my drawings for real. Not like when grown-ups pretend to look, but they're actually thinking about other stuff. She really looked." Noah couldn't argue with that observation because he'd noticed the same thing. "We'll see. Go brush your teeth." That night, after Lily was asleep, Noah sat at the kitchen table with Iris's business card and his phone. The sensible thing would be to run a background check, call her references, do everything he'd told himself he'd do before letting a stranger into his home. But something about Iris made him want to trust his gut instead of his fear, and his gut said she wasn't a threat. He thought about the way she'd crouched down to talk to Lily, the way she'd looked at the small room and called it perfect without a trace of judgment or pity, the way she'd offered exactly what he needed: distance, simplicity, rent money, without asking for anything he couldn't give. Noah called before he could talk himself out of it. Iris answered on the second ring. "Hello? It's Noah Carter. If you still want the room, it's yours." There was a pause, and when Iris spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been relief. "Thank you. I'll be there tomorrow at noon, if that works." "That works." "Noah?" Iris said before he could hang up. "I know this is strange. I know you're taking a risk. I won't make you regret it." "See that you don't," Noah said, trying for light, and landing somewhere near terrified. He hung up and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, wondering what he'd just agreed to and whether survival was worth the cost of letting someone new into the careful world he'd built for his daughter. Tomorrow would answer that question. Tonight, he just had to hope. The next day arrived with the kind of bright sunshine that felt almost aggressive, like the universe mocking Noah's anxiety. He'd called in sick to the garage, a rarity that Eddie had accepted with suspicious ease, and spent the morning cleaning again while Lily asked approximately 700 questions about when Iris was coming and could she help her unpack, and did this mean they'd have family dinners now? "She's a roommate, not family," Noah said for what felt like the 15th time. "She'll probably eat in her room." "That's sad," Lily announced. "Nobody should eat alone." Noah didn't have a response to that, mostly because his daughter was 7 and had somehow already figured out something about loneliness that took most people decades to understand. At exactly noon, there was a knock. Iris stood in the hallway with 2 suitcases and the same calm expression she'd worn yesterday. Noah wondered if anything ever rattled her, or if this was just how she'd learned to move through the world. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi, come in." Lily appeared like a small, enthusiastic tornado, already reaching for one of Iris's suitcases. "I can help. I'm really strong. Dad says I'm strong like my mom." Iris's expression shifted, just slightly, into something softer. "I bet you are. But these are pretty heavy. How about you show me where to put my shoes instead?" And just like that, she'd redirected Lily's energy into something helpful without making her feel dismissed. Noah filed that away under good signs and tried not to feel like he was cataloging evidence for a decision he'd already made. The move-in was quick and efficient. Iris didn't have much: clothes, a laptop, a few books, one framed photograph she set on the desk without comment. Noah tried not to look at it and failed. It showed Iris, younger, standing between 2 people who had to be her parents based on the resemblance. They were dressed formally, standing in front of what looked like a mansion. Iris wasn't smiling in the photo. "My family," Iris said, catching him looking, "before things got complicated." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Complicated isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just necessary." She unpacked with the same quiet efficiency she seemed to do everything, and within an hour the room looked lived in a way it hadn't in years. Lily watched from the doorway, fascinated, until Noah finally pulled her away to give Iris some privacy. "She can come out whenever she wants." Lily whispered loudly. "We're making pasta for lunch." Noah hadn't planned to make lunch for Iris, had specifically been avoiding the kind of domestic situation that might imply they were anything other than landlord and tenant. But Lily had decided, and when his 7-year-old decided something, it tended to happen. An hour later, they were all sitting at the small kitchen table, eating pasta with sauce from a jar because that's what Noah knew how to make. Lily talked enough for all of them, explaining the intricacies of second grade and the ongoing drama about who got to be line leader and whether Marcus in her class really saw a raccoon on the playground or was making it up. Iris listened, responded when appropriate, and somehow made it clear she was engaged without taking over the conversation. Noah found himself relaxing despite his intentions, found himself noticing small things, the way Iris cut her pasta, the way she thanked Lily for passing the salt, the way she seemed comfortable with silence when it fell between Lily's bursts of chatter. "This is nice," Lily announced suddenly. "All of us eating together." Noah tensed, waiting for Iris to remind Lily of boundaries, to reinforce the distance she'd promised. Instead, she just smiled slightly and said, "It is nice." After lunch, Iris disappeared into her room with a quiet, "Thank you for the meal," and Noah cleaned up while Lily did homework at the table. The apartment felt different somehow. Not bad different, just different in a way Noah wasn't sure how to process. That night, after Lily was asleep, Noah found Iris in the kitchen making tea. It was the first time they'd been alone together since she'd moved in, and Noah felt suddenly awkward, like he'd forgotten how to have adult conversations that weren't about carburetors or rent. "Everything okay with the room?" he asked, defaulting to landlord mode. "It's perfect," Iris said. "Thank you again for this." "You're the one paying rent. Nothing to thank me for." "Still?" She poured hot water over her tea bag, the small domestic gesture somehow intimate in the quiet kitchen. "Lily's wonderful, by the way. You're doing a good job with her." Noah felt his throat tighten. He wasn't used to praise, especially not about parenting. Most people who knew his situation just looked at him with pity, like single fatherhood was a tragedy rather than a choice he made every day. "It's hard," he admitted, surprising himself. "Being everything she needs. I keep worrying I'm missing something, that she's going to grow up and realize all the ways I failed her." "She's not going to realize that," Iris said with quiet certainty. "She's going to realize you loved her enough to keep showing up, even when it was hard. That's what matters." They stood in the kitchen, two strangers who weren't quite strangers anymore, and Noah felt the dangerous warmth of hope spreading through his chest. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You can ask. I might not answer." "Fair enough." "Why here? Why this place, this situation? You could clearly afford more." Iris was quiet for a long moment, looking down at her tea. When she finally spoke, her voice was careful, like she was picking her way across stones in a river. "Because I wanted to remember what it felt like to be just a person, not someone's daughter or someone's investment or someone's future. Just Iris living in a small room, making tea in a stranger's kitchen. Does that make sense?" It did, actually, more than Noah wanted to admit. "Yeah," he said softly. "It does." Iris looked up, met his eyes, and smiled. A real smile this time, not the careful professional one. "Good. Now get some sleep. You look exhausted." "Occupational hazard of single parenting." "Well, you have a roommate now. Maybe that'll help." She took her tea and disappeared into her room, leaving Noah alone in the kitchen with the strange, unfamiliar feeling that maybe things were going to be okay. He was wrong, of course, but for that night, in that moment, he let himself believe it. The days that followed established a rhythm Noah hadn't expected. Iris kept her promise about boundaries. She worked in her room during the day, headphones on, door mostly closed. But in the small moments, the gaps between intention and reality, something else started happening. She'd emerge in the evenings when Noah was making dinner, offer to help chop vegetables or set the table. She'd ask Lily about school, actually remember the answers, follow up on the raccoon situation. Turned out Marcus was telling the truth. She'd leave the bathroom cleaner than she'd found it, would buy groceries and insist they were for everyone, would say good morning to Lily with the kind of warmth that suggested she meant it. Small things, normal things, things that shouldn't have mattered, but somehow did. 3 weeks in, Noah came home from a night shift to find Lily and Iris on the living room floor, building an elaborate castle out of cardboard boxes and markers. "Dad!" Lily scrambled up, covered in glitter. "Look what Iris taught me. It's a fortress." "I see that," Noah said, trying to process the scene. "It's almost midnight, Bug. Why are you still up?" "Mrs. Chen had an emergency with her sister," Iris explained, standing. "She called me. I hope that's okay. Lily and I have been working on architectural engineering." "It's very structural," Lily added seriously. Noah felt a rush of competing emotions: gratitude that Mrs. Chen had someone to call, worry that he'd imposed on Iris, something else he couldn't name about the easy way they worked together. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I'll pay you for the time." "Don't be ridiculous," Iris said. "Lily's great company. Besides, I learned a lot about raccoon identification tonight." Lily giggled, and the sound filled the apartment in a way Noah couldn't remember hearing in years. That night, after Lily was finally asleep, Noah found Iris cleaning up the cardboard scraps. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I know. I wanted to." "Why?" Iris paused, a piece of cardboard in her hands. "Because she reminds me what it's like to care about something for no reason except that it brings you joy. I'd forgotten that." It was the most personal thing she'd said since moving in, and Noah felt the walls he'd carefully constructed start to shift. "Iris, I know," she interrupted gently. "I said I wouldn't complicate things. I'm trying not to, but Lily's hard not to love, and you're—" She trailed off, seemed to reconsider. "You're both very easy to care about." Noah didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They cleaned up in silence, a comfortable one, and when they said goodnight, Noah felt like they were standing on the edge of something neither of them was ready to name. The weeks turned into a month, and the apartment transformed. Not physically, they couldn't afford new furniture or fresh paint, but the atmosphere shifted, became lighter, more breathable. Lily laughed more. Noah stressed less. Iris became part of the routine in ways that felt natural rather than intrusive. They had dinner together most nights now, all three of them. Conversations that ranged from Lily's school drama to Noah's work stories to Iris's carefully vague mentions of her consulting work. They watched movies on Friday nights, Lily wedged between them on the couch, fighting sleep as long as possible. They grocery shopped together on Sundays, Iris and Lily debating vegetable choices while Noah pushed the cart and felt something suspiciously like contentment. It scared him how easy it was, how right it felt, how much he'd started to rely on Iris's presence in their lives. One evening, Noah was fixing Lily's bicycle in the hallway, another thing that had broken in their universe of breaking things, when Iris came home from wherever she disappeared to during the day. She was dressed nicer than usual, like she'd had a meeting, and looked tired in a way Noah recognized. "Long day?" he asked. "Something like that." She watched him work for a moment. "Need help?" "I got it. But you could keep me company if you want." So she sat on the floor beside him, back against the wall, and they existed in comfortable silence while Noah tightened chains and adjusted gears. "Can I tell you something?" Iris said after a while. "Sure." "I haven't felt this settled in a long time. Maybe ever." Noah looked up from the bicycle. "That's good, right?" "I don't know. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" But Iris just shook her head, smiled that careful smile. "Nothing you need to worry about. How's the bike coming?" Noah let her change the subject because he was learning that Iris had walls too, different from his, but just as high. They all had their ways of protecting themselves from the world. That night, for the first time since Sarah died, Noah lay in bed and thought about the future without dread. He thought about Lily growing up in a home where laughter was common, where she had people who cared about her, where she didn't have to worry about her father collapsing under the weight of everything. He thought about maybe, possibly, not being alone in this forever. He thought about Iris, and let himself wonder what if. It was dangerous, that wondering. But it felt like hope. And hope was something Noah had lived without for so long that he'd forgotten how necessary it was. Outside, the city hummed its usual chaos. Inside, in their small apartment full of secondhand furniture and carefully managed dreams, three people who'd all been lonely in different ways had found something resembling home. It wouldn't last. It couldn't. But for now, in this moment, it was enough. Noah fell asleep with that thought, not knowing that in less than a week, everything would shatter. The following Tuesday started like any other morning. Noah made pancakes while Lily complained about having to wear her jacket to school, even though it wasn't that cold. And Iris emerged from her room right on time, hair still damp from the shower, offering to drive Lily to school since Noah's shift at the garage started early. "You don't have to do that," Noah said, even though the offer solved a problem he'd been mentally juggling since his alarm went off. "I know I don't have to. I want to." Iris poured herself coffee, added exactly the amount of cream Noah had noticed she preferred. Besides, Lily promised to tell me more about the field trip drama on the way. "There's drama?" Noah looked at his daughter, who was suddenly very focused on her pancakes. "Marcus said the museum was boring, but I thought it was interesting, and now there's sides," Lily explained through a mouthful of food. "Sounds serious," Iris said with complete sincerity. "We should definitely discuss the politics of museum appreciation." Lily beamed, and Noah felt that dangerous warmth again, the one that made him forget this was supposed to be a business arrangement. After they left, Noah cleaned up the breakfast dishes and tried not to think about how domestic everything had become, how easily Iris had slipped into their routine like she'd always been there. He failed, obviously, because that's all he thought about these days. The way she remembered Lily's favorite cereal, the way she left the hallway light on when Noah worked late, the way she'd started saying we instead of you when talking about apartment things, like she was part of the unit now instead of just renting space in it. It terrified him, how much he'd started to depend on her presence, how much Lily had. At the garage, Eddie noticed immediately that something was different. "You're smiling," his boss said suspiciously. "You never smile before noon. What happened? Win the lottery?" "Nothing happened. Can't a guy just be in a good mood?" "Not you. You've been running on fumes and stubbornness for 2 years. Eddie wiped his hands on his coveralls, studying Noah with the kind of attention usually reserved for faulty transmissions. "It's the roommate, isn't it? You finally letting yourself have something good?" Noah focused very intently on the engine in front of him. "She's just a roommate." "Sure. And I'm just a mechanic who happens to own the place." Eddie clapped him on the shoulder. "Look, kid, I knew your Sarah. She was good people, and she wouldn't want you living like a monk for the rest of your life, putting everything into that little girl and nothing into yourself." "I'm fine." "You're surviving. That's different than fine." Eddie moved to leave, then paused. "Whatever's making you smile, don't sabotage it out of guilt. You're allowed to be happy again." The words sat heavy in Noah's chest for the rest of his shift. Was that what this was? Happiness? He'd been so focused on just getting through each day that he'd forgotten what it felt like to want something beyond survival. That evening, Noah came home to find Iris and Lily in the kitchen, attempting to bake cookies. The operative word was attempting. There was flour everywhere, chocolate chips scattered across the counter, and both of them had batter in their hair. "We're culinary artists," Lily announced proudly. "I can see that." Noah tried to keep a straight face. "What happened to the kitchen?" "Creative process," Iris said, not looking remotely apologetic. "It requires mess." "Lots of mess," Lily agreed, flicking flour at Iris, who retaliated immediately. Noah watched them, covered in baking ingredients, laughing in his tiny kitchen, and felt something crack open in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid of. This exact moment. The realization that his life had room for more than just survival, that maybe Lily could have something closer to the childhood he wanted for her, that maybe he wasn't meant to do this alone forever. "Dad, you're staring," Lily said. "Sorry, just wondering if I need to call a cleaning crew." "We'll clean it," Iris promised. "After the cookies are done, Lily says you like chocolate chip." "I do." "Then you have to help," Lily decided. "It's a rule. Everyone helps." So Noah washed his hands and joined them, and for the next hour they made cookies that were probably too sweet and definitely misshapen. And it was one of the best evenings he could remember having in years. Later, after Lily was in bed and they'd cleaned the kitchen to something approaching sanitary, Noah and Iris sat on the couch with coffee and cookies that tasted better than they had any right to. "Thank you," Noah said quietly. "For today. For all of it." "You don't have to keep thanking me." "Yeah, I do. You didn't sign up for this, for being part of our lives like this. Iris was quiet for a moment, turning her coffee mug in her hands. What if I don't mind? Being part of it. Noah's heart did something complicated. Iris, I know. I said I wouldn't complicate things. But I need to be honest with you about something. She set down her mug, met his eyes. I'm getting attached to Lily, to this place, to... She stopped, seemed to reconsider. I'm getting attached, and I don't know if that's fair to any of us. Why wouldn't it be fair? Because I'm not who you think I am. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Noah felt his pulse quicken, all his earlier peace evaporating into familiar anxiety. What does that mean? It means my life is complicated. It means I came here running from things I'm eventually going to have to face. It means... Iris stopped, shook her head. I don't want to hurt you or Lily, but I'm afraid that's exactly what I'm going to do. Then tell me the truth, Noah said. Whatever it is, just tell me. Iris looked at him with something that might have been longing or regret or both. I can't. Not yet. I'm sorry. She stood, took her coffee, and disappeared into her room, leaving Noah alone with half-formed fears and the terrible certainty that something was wrong. He didn't sleep well that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Iris's expression, heard the careful way she'd chosen her words. She was hiding something. He'd known that from the beginning, had chosen to ignore it because the rent money was necessary, and she'd been good to Lily, and he was so tired of being alone. But now, weeks into this arrangement, with his daughter attached and his own heart dangerously close to the same, Noah realized he should have asked more questions, should have pushed harder, should have protected them better from whatever this was. The next few days were strange. Iris didn't pull away exactly, but there was a carefulness to her interactions that hadn't been there before. She still helped with Lily, still joined them for meals, but there was a guardedness in her eyes that made Noah's stomach hurt. On Thursday, Noah picked Lily up from school and found her quieter than usual. Everything okay, Bug? Is Iris leaving? Lily asked, not looking at him. Noah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Why would you think that? She's sad, like she's saying goodbye to things. His 7-year-old daughter, terrifyingly perceptive as always, had noticed what Noah had been trying to ignore. I don't know, sweetheart, but if something's going on, I'll figure it out. Okay? You promise? I promise. It was a promise he had no idea how to keep, but he made it anyway because that's what parents did. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Noah knocked on Iris's door. She opened it, looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept any better than he had. We need to talk, Noah said. I know. They went to the kitchen, the site of so many of their conversations, and sat across from each other at the small table. Outside, the city was its usual chaos. Inside, the silence felt fragile. Lily thinks you're leaving, Noah said. Iris closed her eyes briefly. She's a smart kid. Are you? Leaving? I don't want to. But I told you, my life is complicated, and those complications are catching up with me. Then let me help, Noah said, frustrated. Stop being so mysterious about everything and just tell me what's going on. Iris looked at him for a long moment, and Noah could see her warring with herself, deciding something. Finally, she sighed. My family is wealthy, very wealthy. My father owns half the commercial real estate in the state and has political connections that would make your head spin. She said it flatly, like she was reading from a script she hated. I left that world 2 years ago because I couldn't breathe in it anymore. Everything was about image, about the family business, about who I was supposed to marry and what role I was supposed to play, so I walked away. Noah tried to process this. And you ended up here because I wanted to disappear. Be someone without that last name attached. I've been moving around, staying in places like this, working remotely on projects my father doesn't know about. Living small so I could finally figure out who I was without all the noise. And now? Now my father's hired people to find me. They've been closing in for months. I thought I had more time, but... She pulled out her phone, showed him a text. They know where I am. The text was from an unknown number. We know you're in the city. Your father just wants to talk. Please make this easy. Noah felt cold spread through his chest. When did you get this? This morning. And you weren't going to tell me? I didn't want to scare you or Lily. I was trying to figure out what to do. What to do is be honest with the people who care about you, Noah said, angrier than he expected to be. You think I can't handle complicated? My wife died 3 years ago and left me alone with a 6-year-old and more debt than I could pay. I understand complicated. What I can't handle is lies. I never lied to you. You didn't tell me the truth either. There's a difference. He stood, paced the small kitchen. Do you have any idea what it's like? Letting you into our lives, watching my daughter get attached to you, starting to... He stopped himself, but Iris finished the thought. Starting to what, Noah? Starting to hope, he said quietly. Starting to think maybe we didn't have to do this alone. And now I find out you've been running from some wealthy family the whole time, and any day someone could show up and take you away, and I'll have to explain to Lily why another person she loves disappeared. The words hung in the air, raw and honest. Iris stood, moved toward him, stopped. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said. I came here to hide, not to build a life. But then there was Lily, and you, and this apartment that felt more like home than anywhere I've ever lived, and I started wanting things I had no right to want. Like what? Like staying, like being part of something real instead of just passing through. Her voice cracked slightly. Like maybe having a family that actually felt like one. Noah looked at her, at this woman who'd brought light back into his dark apartment, who'd made his daughter laugh again, who'd made him remember what it felt like to want something beyond just survival. And he made a decision that was probably stupid but felt necessary. Then stay, he said. Whatever's coming, we'll deal with it together. You don't understand what you're offering. My father, when he finds me, and he won't just let me go. He'll make things difficult. He'll use his money, his connections, his... I don't care, Noah interrupted. I grew up with nothing, and I've survived with less. Some rich guy doesn't scare me. He should. Well, he doesn't. Noah moved closer, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in Iris's eyes, the fear she was trying to hide. Look, I don't know what happens next, but I know that Lily's happy for the first time in years. I know that I actually look forward to coming home now instead of dreading it. I know that you matter to us. So if you want to stay, you stay. And if your father wants to have a problem with that, he can talk to me. Iris laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. You have no idea what you're saying. Maybe not, but I mean it anyway. They stood in the kitchen, closer than they'd ever been, and Noah felt the air shift between them. This wasn't just about rent anymore, hadn't been for weeks. This was about family, about choice, about deciding that some risks were worth taking. Noah, Iris said softly, if I stay, everything gets complicated. I think it's already complicated. More complicated. I can handle complicated. Iris looked at him, really looked at him, and Noah saw the moment she made her decision. Whatever wall she'd been maintaining crumbled, and suddenly she was just a woman who was tired of running, standing in a small kitchen with a man who was tired of being afraid. Okay, she said. I'll stay. For now. But when things get difficult, and they will, you can't say I didn't warn you. Noted. They went to bed separately, in their separate rooms, but something had fundamentally shifted. Noah lay awake knowing that he'd just promised to face down a wealthy, powerful man he'd never met to protect a woman he barely knew, but somehow couldn't imagine losing. It was possibly the stupidest decision he'd made since deciding to be a single parent in the first place. He didn't regret it. The weekend was tense. Iris kept checking her phone, jumping at every sound in the hallway. Noah pretended not to notice while making pancakes and helping Lily with a school project about community helpers. They'd chosen mechanics, Lily's idea, and were creating a poster board that was heavy on glitter and light on actual information about what mechanics did. Is Iris okay? Lily asked, carefully gluing a cutout wrench to the poster. She's fine, Bug. Just working through some stuff. Grown-up stuff? Yeah. Is it bad grown-up stuff? Like when the bills come and you make that face? Noah tried not to make that face right now. It's complicated grown-up stuff, but we're handling it. We're okay? Lily was quiet for a moment, then added, I like having Iris here. She makes things better. I know you do, sweetheart. Do you like having her here? It was such a simple question, asked with such complete innocence, and Noah didn't know how to answer it honestly without making everything more complicated than it already was. Yeah, he said finally. I do. Lily smiled, satisfied, and went back to her glitter. Noah watched her, this small person who trusted him completely to keep her world safe, and hoped desperately that he could actually do it. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and cold wind, the kind of weather that made Noah's bones ache and reminded him that winter was coming whether they were ready or not. He dropped Lily at school, drove to the garage, and tried to focus on work instead of the growing certainty that something was about to break. The call came at 11. Noah? It's Mrs. Chen. Her voice was strained. There's a man at your apartment. Well-dressed, expensive car. He's asking about Iris. I didn't tell him anything, but I thought you should know. Noah's blood went cold. Is he still there? Waiting in the lobby. The building manager won't let him up without resident permission. I'm on my way. Call Iris. Tell her not to leave her room. Noah threw down his tools, shouted something at Eddie about an emergency, and drove home faster than was probably legal. His mind raced through scenarios, none of them good. If Iris's father had sent someone, that meant things were escalating. That meant the quiet life they'd built was about to get very loud. When Noah reached the building, he found exactly what Mrs. Chen had described. A man in an expensive suit standing in the lobby, looking profoundly out of place among the worn furniture and faded carpet. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and the kind of posture that came from a lifetime of people doing what he said. Can I help you? Noah asked, keeping his voice level. The man turned, assessed Noah in a single glance that probably cataloged his oil-stained work clothes and secondhand jacket. I'm looking for Iris Bennett. I believe she's staying in this building. Who's asking? My name is Richard Chen. I work for Iris's father, Howard Bennett. Mr. Bennett is very concerned about his daughter and would like to speak with her. And you thought showing up at her home uninvited was the way to do that? Richard's expression didn't change. Mr. Bennett has tried every other avenue. Iris has been avoiding contact for nearly 2 years. Surely you can understand a father's concern for his daughter's well-being. I understand you're standing in my building uninvited, Noah said, and I'm asking you to leave. You must be the landlord. Noah Carter, correct? Single father, works at Eddie's Auto Repair, struggling with finances. Quite generous of you to take in a roommate. The casual recitation of his life made Noah's jaw clench. You've been checking up on me. Due diligence. Mr. Bennett wants to ensure his daughter is in a safe environment. She is. Is she? Or is she being taken advantage of by someone who needs her rent money? Richard pulled out a business card, held it out. Mr. Bennett is prepared to be very generous with anyone who's been helping Iris. He simply wants to talk to his daughter. Noah didn't take the card. I'm going to say this once. Iris is an adult. If she wants to talk to her father, that's her choice. You standing here trying to intimidate me or buy me off isn't going to change that. So unless you want me to call the police about harassment, I suggest you leave. Richard studied him for a long moment, then put the card back in his pocket. Mr. Bennett is not a man who gives up easily. He will see his daughter, Mr. Carter. The only question is whether that happens peacefully or with complications. I'd encourage you to think about which option is better for everyone involved. He left without waiting for a response, and Noah stood in the lobby feeling like he'd just been threatened very politely by someone who'd probably had a lot of practice at it. Upstairs, Noah found Iris pacing the apartment, phone clutched in her hand. Mrs. Chen called, she said immediately. Is he gone? For now. Noah told her about the conversation, watched her face go pale. He threatened you. He tried. Noah, you don't understand. My father doesn't make empty threats. If Richard was here, that means he's serious. That means... She stopped, breathing hard. This is bad. This is really bad. Then we figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. You can't fight my father. Nobody can. He has lawyers, investigators, more money than you can imagine. If he wants me back, he'll find a way. Back for what? Noah asked. What does he actually want from you? Iris sank onto the couch, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. Control. That's all he's ever wanted. I was supposed to marry someone he chose, work in the family business, be the perfect daughter who did exactly what was expected. When I left, I didn't just leave the money. I left everything he'd planned for my life. He can't accept that. So this isn't about concern. It's about power. It's always been about power. Noah sat beside her, close but not touching. Then we don't let him have it. You're an adult. He can't force you to do anything. You'd be surprised what money can do, Iris said bitterly. He can make your life hell, Noah. He can get you fired, audited, investigated for things you didn't do. He can make it impossible for you to rent anywhere in the city. He can... She looked at him, and Noah saw real fear in her eyes. He can take Lily. The words hit like a physical blow. What? He'll find something. Some violation, some technicality. Single father working night shifts, leaving his daughter with neighbors, living in a building that's not up to code. He'll make it look like you're unfit, and he'll use his connections to make sure it sticks. Noah felt rage rising in his chest, hot and sharp. He'd do that? Use a child as leverage? To get what he wants? Yes. Iris's voice broke. I'm so sorry. I should never have stayed. I should have left the first night, but I was selfish and tired, and you and Lily were so... She stopped, wiped her eyes. I've put you both in danger. The best thing I can do now is leave before this gets worse. No. Noah, no, he repeated more firmly. I'm not letting some rich bastard scare me into letting you go, and I'm sure as hell not letting him use my daughter as a weapon. We'll figure this out. How? What are you going to do against someone like Howard Bennett? It was a fair question, and Noah didn't have a good answer. What could he do? He was a mechanic with barely enough money to pay rent, no connections, no power. On paper, this wasn't even a fight. It was a slaughter waiting to happen. But Noah had spent 3 years surviving as a single parent, working double shifts and counting pennies, and somehow keeping his daughter fed and safe and loved. He'd learned that money wasn't the only kind of power, that sometimes showing up and refusing to break was its own form of strength. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I know running won't solve anything. Your father will just find you somewhere else, so maybe it's time to stop running and actually face him. You have no idea what you're suggesting. Then tell me. Explain exactly what we're dealing with, and we'll make a plan. Iris looked at him like she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. You're serious. You actually want to fight my father. I want to protect my daughter and keep you safe. If that means fighting, then yeah, I'm serious. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Iris laughed, quiet and slightly hysterical. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both, Noah said. But I'm not backing down. Not from this. Not from you. The words hung between them, carrying weight Noah hadn't entirely intended. Iris met his eyes, and something passed between them that felt important and terrifying and real. Okay, she said finally. Okay. We face him together. But Noah? When this all goes sideways, and it will, please remember that I tried to protect you. Noted. They sat in the quiet apartment, two people who'd both been running from different things, and made the decision to stand and fight instead. It was probably stupid. It was definitely dangerous. But it was also the only choice that felt right. Outside, the city moved through its usual chaos, unaware that in a small third-floor apartment, a mechanic and a runaway heiress were preparing for war. Noah picked Lily up from school that afternoon with his mind still racing through scenarios, none of them ending well. His daughter climbed into the truck chattering about something that happened at recess, but Noah could barely focus on the words. He kept seeing Richard Chen's polite, threatening smile, kept hearing the casual way the man had cataloged his entire life like Noah was just another problem to be solved with money. Dad, you're not listening, Lily said, pulling him back to the present. Sorry, Bug. What were you saying? I asked if Iris is going to help me with my math homework tonight. She's really good at explaining fractions. Noah's chest tightened. How was he supposed to explain to his 7-year-old that the woman she'd grown attached to might disappear because some rich man across town decided he wanted his daughter back? We'll see, he said, which was the coward's answer, but the only one he had. When they got home, Iris was in the kitchen making soup, her movements mechanical, like she was going through familiar motions to avoid thinking about everything else. She looked up when they entered, and Noah saw the strain in her expression even as she smiled at Lily. "Hey, kiddo, how was school?" "Good. We're learning about fractions and I hate them. Can you help?" "Of course." Iris glanced at Noah, and he could read the question in her eyes. "Did you tell her?" He shook his head slightly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever, if they could figure this out first." While Iris and Lily worked on homework at the kitchen table, Noah retreated to his room and did something he hadn't done in years. He called in a favor. Eddie answered on the third ring, sounding suspicious immediately. "You never call me after work unless something's wrong. What broke?" "Nothing broke. I need advice." "About what? Cars or life?" "Life," Noah admitted. "If someone powerful was threatening you, someone with money and connections, how would you fight back?" Eddie was quiet for a moment. "This about your roommate?" "Yeah." "She in some kind of trouble?" "Her family is. Or she's in trouble with her family. It's complicated." "It always is." Eddie sighed. "Look, kid, I'm not the guy to ask about fighting rich people. I fix cars. But I will tell you this. Money doesn't make someone invincible. It just makes them used to winning. You want to beat someone like that, you have to be willing to do the thing they can't imagine anyone doing. Which is? Refuse to be bought, scared, or broken. Most people fold when threatened. You don't fold, you become a problem they don't know how to solve." Noah absorbed that, filed it away with everything else he was trying to process. "Thanks, Eddie. You need time off, you take it. And Carter, be careful. Powerful people don't like losing, and they've got a lot of ways to make sure they don't." After hanging up, Noah sat on his bed staring at nothing, trying to figure out what refusing to fold actually looked like in practice. Before he could come up with an answer, there was a knock on his door. "It's me," Iris said quietly. "Come in." She slipped inside, closed the door behind her. In the small space of his bedroom, surrounded by his sparse furniture and the life he'd built from nothing, she looked both out of place and perfectly right. "Lily's watching a movie," Iris said. "I told her I needed to talk to you about apartment stuff." "Good thinking." Iris sat on the edge of his bed, keeping distance between them even in the confined space. "I've been making calls, trying to figure out how much damage control is possible. My father's already moving. He's had investigators looking into you, into this building, into Lily's school. He's building a case." Noah felt cold spread through his limbs. "A case for what?" "For proving you're an unfit guardian. That Lily would be better off in foster care or with a relative." Iris's voice was flat, clinical, like if she didn't let herself feel the words, they wouldn't hurt as much. "It's all preliminary right now, just gathering information. But if I don't contact him soon, he'll escalate." "Then we escalate first." "How? What can we possibly do that he can't counter with money or lawyers or—" "The truth," Noah interrupted. "We tell the truth. That you're an adult who left a controlling family, that you're living here by choice, that you haven't done anything wrong. We make it public." Iris looked at him like he'd suggested they fly to the moon. "Public how?" "Media, news stations. Someone has to care about a wealthy businessman harassing his adult daughter and threatening a single father to get his way. That's a story." "It's also a story that could destroy you," Iris said. "My father's lawyers will tear apart every part of your life looking for ammunition. They'll find every mistake, every late payment, every time you left Lily with a neighbor. They'll make you look like everything you're not." "Let them try." Noah's voice was harder than he intended. "I've got nothing to hide. I work hard. I love my daughter. I've done my best with what I have. If that's not good enough for some judge, then the system's more broken than I thought." "It is that broken," Iris said softly. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. Money breaks it. Power breaks it. And my father has both." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them both. Finally, Noah spoke. "What do you want to do? Not what you think you should do, or what keeps us safest. What do you actually want?" Iris looked at him, and Noah saw tears she was trying not to shed. "I want to stay." I want to keep making breakfast with Lily and helping her with homework and sitting on the couch with you watching terrible movies. I want to keep pretending I'm just a normal person living a normal life. But wanting something doesn't make it possible. Maybe not, but it's a start. Noah, you have to understand, if I stay, if we fight this, it's going to get ugly. My father will come here himself. He'll make demands. He'll threaten everything you care about, and he won't stop until he either gets what he wants or destroys what's in his way. Then I guess we'd better be harder to destroy than he expects. Iris laughed, but it sounded broken. You have too much faith in the world being fair. No, I don't. I know exactly how unfair it is. I just also know that sometimes the only thing you can do is refuse to give up. Noah moved closer, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she was trying to hide. I'm not saying this will work. I'm not saying we'll win. But I am saying that I'd rather fight and lose than let you disappear without trying. Why? Iris whispered. Why does this matter so much to you? Noah could have deflected, could have made it about principle or protecting Lily or any number of safe answers. Instead, he told the truth. Because you matter to me, both of you, you and Lily. This last month, having you here, it's been the first time since Sarah died that this place felt like a home instead of just somewhere we sleep. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I should be thinking more about what's safe and less about what I want, but I can't help it. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying. Iris stared at him, and Noah watched her process what he'd just admitted, saw the moment it registered fully. Noah, she started, but he interrupted. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever we decide, whatever happens next, I needed you to know that you're not alone in this, that you matter to people who aren't trying to control you. Iris made a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and then suddenly she was kissing him. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and real, like she was trying to prove to both of them that this was worth fighting for. Noah kissed her back, his hands tangling in her hair, and for one perfect moment everything else disappeared. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Iris pressed her forehead against his. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Probably. We're going to lose everything. Maybe. And you still want to try? Yeah, Noah said. I really do. They stayed like that for a long moment, holding on to each other in Noah's small bedroom while the world prepared to come crashing down around them. Then Iris pulled back, wiped her eyes, and something in her expression shifted from fear to determination. Okay, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. I need to make some calls, people who might actually be able to help. What kind of people? The kind my father doesn't own yet. Iris stood, straightened her clothes. There's a journalist I know, someone who's been trying to write about my father's business practices for years but could never get enough proof. And a lawyer who specializes in family law who helped a friend escape a similar situation. If anyone can help us navigate this, it's them. Will they? I don't know, but I'm going to ask. Iris moved toward the door, paused. Noah, thank you for believing this is worth fighting for. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like. After she left, Noah sat alone with the echo of that kiss still burning on his lips, and the terrifying certainty that he'd just committed to a fight he had no idea how to win. But Eddie was right. Money didn't make someone invincible. And if refusing to fold was what it took, then Noah would become the most stubborn obstacle Howard Bennett had ever encountered. The next 3 days were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and mounting anxiety. Iris spent hours in her room talking to people in hushed, urgent tones. Noah went to work, came home, took care of Lily, and tried to act like everything was normal even though normal had become a distant memory. They kept the situation from Lily as much as possible, maintaining routines and bedtimes and homework sessions, creating an illusion of stability while the foundation crumbled beneath them. On Thursday evening, Iris emerged from her room looking exhausted but determined. The journalist will meet with us tomorrow night after Lily's asleep. She wants to hear everything. And the lawyer? She'll take the case pro bono if we can prove my father's using illegal intimidation tactics, which means we need documentation. Everything Richard Chen said, any contact your building manager had with investigators, Phone records if possible. Noah nodded, already mentally cataloging what he could gather. I'll talk to Mrs. Chen and the building manager tomorrow. See what they remember. This could blow up in our faces, Iris warned. Once we go to the media, there's no taking it back. My father will retaliate hard. Let him. That night, after Lily was asleep, Noah and Iris sat at the kitchen table going through everything they knew, building a timeline of Howard Bennett's attempts to find and control his daughter. It was methodical, almost clinical work, but Noah could feel the emotion underneath it. Iris's anger at being hunted, her fear of what her father might do, her guilt over dragging Noah into this mess. Tell me about him, Noah said during a break. Your father. What's he actually like? Iris was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was careful, measured. He's brilliant, charismatic. Everyone who meets him thinks he's this generous philanthropist, this self-made success story. And in some ways he is. He built his company from almost nothing, gives millions to charity, sits on boards for hospitals and museums. She paused. But at home, he's different, controlling. Everything has to be perfect, has to reflect well on the family. My mother learned early to just agree with him. I never learned that skill. What happened when you disagreed? Nothing dramatic, no yelling, no violence, just this quiet disapproval that made you feel like you'd failed some test you didn't know you were taking. And then consequences. Opportunities taken away, freedoms restricted, always framed as being for your own good. Iris's hands tightened around her mug. When I was 16, I wanted to go to art school. I was good at photography, loved it. He said no, said I needed to study business or law, something useful for the family. I applied to art schools anyway. Got accepted to 3. And he made calls, had the acceptances withdrawn, told me it was a lesson about the real world, about how power works. She laughed bitterly. He was right about that, at least. I learned exactly how power works. Noah reached across the table, took her hand. You're not that 16-year-old anymore. You get to make your own choices now. Do I? Because it feels like he's still making them for me. Every time I try to build something, he finds a way to tear it down. This is just the latest version. Not if we stop him first. Iris looked at their joined hands, and Noah saw the war happening behind her eyes, between hope and learned helplessness, between fighting and fleeing. What if we can't? She asked quietly. What if he wins anyway and you lose Lily because of me? That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. No, Noah admitted, but I can promise I won't let him win without a fight. And I can promise that whatever happens, I won't regret trying to help you. Some things are worth the risk. They sat in the quiet kitchen, hands linked across the table, and made silent promises to each other that neither was sure they could keep. But sometimes making the promise was enough, even when the outcome was uncertain. Friday arrived with rain and gray skies that matched Noah's mood. At the garage, he worked mechanically, his mind elsewhere. Eddie noticed but didn't comment, just gave him space and easier jobs that didn't require total concentration. Around 2, Noah's phone buzzed with a text from Iris. Building manager confirmed investigators came by 3 times this week asking questions. Getting written statement. Mrs. Chen, too. Noah texted back a thumbs up and tried to focus on the transmission in front of him. They were building a case, gathering evidence, doing everything right. It should have felt empowering. Instead, it felt like watching a storm approach and hoping the shelter would hold. That evening, Noah picked up Lily from school and found her quieter than usual, her backpack dragging on the ground behind her. What's wrong, Bug? Nothing. Lily, she sighed, the dramatic sigh of a 7-year-old with the weight of the world on her shoulders. Some kids at school were asking weird questions about where I live and if my dad has a lot of money and if there's other grown-ups at home besides you. Noah's blood went cold. What kids? Just some kids. They said their parents were asking. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. He pulled the truck over, turned to face his daughter. Lily, listen to me. If anyone ever asks you questions like that again, kids or grown-ups, you tell them to talk to me. And then you tell me right away, okay? Why? Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. You did everything right. But sometimes grown-ups ask questions they shouldn't, and I need to know about it so I can handle it. Lily looked worried now, picking up on Noah's tension even though he was trying to hide it. Is someone trying to hurt us? Noah chose his words carefully. Someone is trying to make things difficult. But I'm handling it. You don't need to worry. Is it because of Iris? The question caught Noah off guard. Why would you think that? Because she's sad a lot now, and you're worried, and things feel different. Lily's eyes were too knowing for 7 years old. Is she going to leave like Mom did? The comparison hit Noah like a physical blow. He pulled Lily into a hug, held her tight against his chest. Mom didn't leave on purpose, remember? She had an accident. That wasn't her choice. I know, but she still left. And sometimes people leave even when you don't want them to. Noah pulled back, looked at his daughter's serious face. Iris isn't planning to leave, but some things are happening that are complicated and grown up, and we're figuring them out. Whatever happens, I promise you'll always be safe. That's the most important thing, okay? Okay. Lily hugged him back. I really don't want her to leave, Dad. I like having her here. I know, Bug. I do too. When they got home, Noah told Iris about the questions at school while Lily was in her room changing. Iris's face went pale. He's escalating. Using the school, using other parents, building a narrative. What kind of narrative? That I'm a bad influence, that you're not properly supervising Lily, that this living situation is inappropriate or dangerous. Iris paced the small kitchen. It's the same playbook. Plant doubt, gather allies, make people question things until the official investigation seems justified. Then we move faster. When's the journalist coming? 8, after Lily's in bed. The evening crawled by. Noah made dinner, helped Lily with homework, read her extra stories at bedtime because she seemed to need the comfort. By the time he closed her bedroom door at 7:30, he was wound so tight he could barely breathe. The journalist arrived at exactly 8 o'clock. Her name was Maria Santos, mid-40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put Noah at ease. She declined coffee, pulled out a recording device, and got straight to business. I've been investigating Howard Bennett for 3 years, she said, looking between Noah and Iris. Real estate corruption, zoning manipulation, harassment of tenants who wouldn't sell. But he's careful, covers his tracks well. This story, though, this could finally be the one that sticks. A wealthy businessman stalking his adult daughter, threatening a single father and his child to force compliance. That's human interest meets abuse of power. People will pay attention. And then what? Noah asked. He sues you for defamation? He can try, but if we have proof, documentation, witnesses, recorded threats, there's not much he can do except damage control. Maria looked at Iris. You willing to go on record? Use your real name? Iris hesitated only a moment. Yes. And you understand this will destroy any chance of reconciliation with your family? That once this story runs, there's no going back? There was never a chance of reconciliation. My father doesn't reconcile. He conquers or he destroys. This is just making the battlefield more public. Maria nodded, satisfied. Then let's start from the beginning. Tell me everything. They talked for 3 hours. Iris explained her childhood, the control, the final fight that made her leave. Noah described Richard Chen's visit, the implied threats, the investigations into his life. Maria took notes, asked pointed questions, recorded every detail. By the time she left at 11, Noah felt wrung out, but strangely hopeful. The story runs Monday, Maria said at the door. I'll send you a draft tomorrow for fact-checking. Once it's public, things will move fast. Be prepared for media attention, for your father's response, for everything to get much worse before it gets better. We're prepared, Iris said, though Noah wasn't sure either of them actually were. After Maria left, Noah and Iris stood in the quiet apartment, both knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Last chance to back out, Iris said softly. I could leave tonight. Disappear again. Your life goes back to normal. This is normal now, Noah said. You being here. Us fighting this together. I don't want normal if it means you're gone. Iris moved closer until they were standing in the same space they'd been in a few nights ago, the air charged with the same dangerous hope. When this all falls apart, if it falls apart, Noah corrected. When it falls apart, Iris insisted, I need you to promise me something. Promise you'll put Lily first. Whatever my father offers, whatever deal he tries to make, you put her safety above everything else, even above me. Iris, promise me, Noah. He looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life a month ago and somehow become essential, and made a promise he hoped he'd never have to keep. I promise. She kissed him then, soft and desperate and full of all the things they hadn't said. When they finally broke apart, Noah held her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and trying to memorize this moment in case it was all they got. Whatever happens Monday, he said quietly, we face it together. Deal? Deal. They went to their separate rooms, but Noah didn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Maria's story, about Howard Bennett's probable response, about the fight that was coming whether they were ready or not. Somewhere in the building, Iris was probably doing the same thing. And down the hall, Lily slept peacefully, unaware that her world was about to change in ways Noah couldn't fully protect her from. Saturday and Sunday were strange, suspended days where they all pretended everything was fine while waiting for Monday's bomb to drop. They went to the park, made pancakes, watched movies. Lily seemed to relax in the forced normalcy. But Noah caught Iris checking her phone obsessively, saw the strain in her smile when she thought no one was looking. Sunday evening, Maria sent the article draft. Noah and Iris read it together on the couch, Lily asleep in her room. It was good, really good. Maria had woven their personal story with broader questions about wealth, power, and family rights. She'd gotten quotes from legal experts about parental control and adult autonomy. She'd made Howard Bennett look exactly like what he was, a man who believed money meant he could control everyone around him. She's going to destroy him, Iris whispered, reading the final paragraphs. Is that what you want? Iris thought about it. I want him to leave me alone. I want him to understand he doesn't own me. If that destroys his reputation in the process, then maybe that's what it takes for him to finally listen. The article was scheduled to run at 6 a.m. Monday morning. Noah set an alarm for 5:30, but he didn't need it. He was already awake, had been for hours. Beside him, his phone buzzed with a text from Iris. Can't sleep either. Come to the kitchen? He found her making coffee in the pre-dawn darkness, still in pajamas, hair messy and beautiful. 2 hours, she said without preamble. 2 hours, Noah confirmed. They drank coffee and waited for the world to change, and when Noah's phone finally buzzed at 6 with a news alert, they read it together, standing shoulder to shoulder in the kitchen where they'd shared so many conversations. The headline read, Wealthy developer Howard Bennett accused of stalking adult daughter, threatening single father. Below it, Maria's story laid out everything: the control, the escape, the current situation. She'd included statements from Mrs. Chen and the building manager, had gotten legal experts to weigh in on the stalking behavior, had painted a picture of a powerful man who couldn't accept that his daughter had a right to her own life. It was perfect. It was devastating. And it meant war. Noah's phone started ringing at 6:15. Unknown number. He didn't answer. It rang again. And again. By 6:30, both his and Iris's phones were going off constantly. Reporters, curiosity seekers, people who'd read the article and had opinions. At 7, there was a knock on the door. Noah opened it to find Richard Chen standing in the hallway, his expression no longer polite. Behind him stood Howard Bennett himself, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Noah's truck. He had Iris's eyes and none of her warmth. Mr. Carter, Howard Bennett said, his voice controlled but carrying an edge that promised violence. I believe we need to talk about my daughter. Noah looked at the man who'd been hunting Iris for 2 years, who'd threatened his family, who represented everything wrong with the world's power structures, and felt surprisingly calm. Yes, Noah said. I believe we do. He stepped aside, let them in, and prepared for the fight of his life. Howard Bennett stepped into the apartment like he was surveying property he already owned, his gaze sweeping across the worn furniture and small space with the kind of assessment that put a price on everything. Richard Chen followed, closing the door behind them with careful precision. Noah stood his ground in his own living room, very aware that he was wearing yesterday's shirt, and hadn't shaved in 2 days, facing down two men in suits that cost more than his monthly rent. "Where is she?" Howard asked, dispensing with pleasantries entirely. "Right here." Iris emerged from her room and Noah watched her transform before his eyes. Gone was the woman who made pancakes and helped with homework, replaced by someone harder, more guarded. The daughter who'd learned to survive in Howard Bennett's world. "Hello, Father." "Iris." Howard's voice softened fractionally, though his expression remained controlled. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble with this morning's stunt." "That wasn't a stunt. That was the truth." "Your version of it, perhaps." Howard moved further into the room, and Noah noticed how he positioned himself between Iris and the door, a subtle power play. Maria Santos is a journalist with an agenda and a grudge against successful businessmen. Using her to air family grievances publicly is beneath you. "Is it? I learned from the best how to use media when it suits me." Something flickered in Howard's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. "I taught you well then, but you've made a serious miscalculation. That article doesn't hurt me. It hurts you. And him." He gestured toward Noah without looking at him. "The narrative you've created paints me as controlling, certainly, but it also raises questions about your judgment, running away, hiding in places like this, involving innocent people in your personal drama." "This isn't drama," Iris said sharply. "This is me trying to live my own life." "By working some vague consulting job and renting a room in a building that barely passes code inspection? You call that living?" Howard's voice remained level, but Noah heard the disdain underneath. "You had everything, Iris. Education, opportunities, a future, and you threw it away to prove some point about independence." "I threw away your control. That's not the same thing." "Isn't it?" Howard finally looked at Noah, really looked at him, and Noah felt the weight of that assessment like a physical thing. "Mr. Carter, you seem like a decent man in difficult circumstances. Single father, working-class job, doing your best with limited resources. I respect that. But surely you understand that my daughter's presence here has complicated your life unnecessarily." "She hasn't complicated anything," Noah said, keeping his voice steady. "She's been a good roommate and a good friend to my daughter." "Has she told you about her history? About the last time she tried this independence experiment?" Howard pulled out his phone, swiped through something, held it up. Noah saw a news article with Iris's photo, younger, the headline mentioning a car accident and charges that were later dropped. 2 years ago in Seattle, she was staying with people she barely knew, working under the table, trying to disappear. Someone in that house had a warrant, police raid. Iris was in the wrong place at the wrong time, spent a night in jail before my lawyer sorted it out. Noah glanced at Iris, saw her face had gone pale, but her jaw was set. "That wasn't my fault. I had no idea about the warrant." "No, you just had poor judgment about who to trust. Just like now." Howard pocketed his phone. "Mr. Carter, I'm not here to threaten you. Despite what that article implies, I'm simply a father concerned about his daughter's safety and well-being. Iris has a pattern of running away, of making impulsive decisions, of putting herself in situations that require my intervention to resolve. I'm sure you can understand a parent's worry." It was masterfully done. The reasonable tone, the framing that made Howard the concerned parent and Iris the reckless child. Noah could see how it would play to an outside observer, how it could reshape the narrative Maria had created. "I understand being worried," Noah said carefully, "but Iris is 28 years old. She doesn't need your intervention. She needs your respect. Respect is earned through responsible choices. Living in a stranger's apartment, involving yourself with a single father and his child, going to the media with family matters, these aren't responsible choices." "They're my choices to make," Iris said, her voice tight. "That's the whole point you keep missing. I'm an adult. I get to decide how I live, where I live, who I spend time with. You don't get to approve or disapprove anymore. As long as you're my daughter, I have a responsibility." "No." Iris cut him off, and Noah heard years of frustration in that single word. "You have a desire for control. That's different from responsibility. You want me to come back so you can manage my life like one of your properties. Put me in the right box. Make sure I represent the family correctly. Marry whoever you've decided is suitable. That's not love, Dad. That's ownership." Howard's expression flickered just for a moment, and Noah saw real emotion there before it was locked away again. Is that what you think? That I don't love you? I think you love the idea of me. The version that does what you want and never questions anything. But you've never loved the actual me, the person who wants different things than you planned. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with years of unspoken conflict. Richard Chen shifted uncomfortably by the door, clearly unused to witnessing such personal confrontation. Howard looked at his daughter with something that might have been pain or anger, or both. I see, he said finally. Then let me be clear about the actual situation, not the emotional narrative you've constructed. That article this morning started a process I would have preferred to avoid, but I'm prepared to see through. My lawyers are already filing papers questioning Mr. Carter's fitness as a guardian, pointing out the unstable living situation and questionable judgment in allowing an unknown woman access to his child. Noah felt ice in his veins. You're bluffing. Am I? I have documentation of you working night shifts and leaving your daughter with neighbors. I have records of unpaid medical bills and late rent payments. I have statements from parents at Lily's school expressing concern about questions their children were asked. Howard's voice remained calm, almost gentle, which made the threat more terrifying. Separately, none of these things mean much. Together, they build a picture of a father who's overwhelmed, struggling, potentially unable to provide stable care. That's garbage, and you know it, Noah said, anger rising past his fear. I've done everything for Lily. She's happy, healthy, doing well in school, and living in an apartment with a woman who has a history of poor judgment and impulsive decisions, a woman who's currently embroiled in a very public conflict with her family. Howard turned back to Iris. You wanted to make this public? Fine. But public scrutiny goes both ways. Every choice you've made, every person you've involved, it's all open for examination now, including the 7-year-old child you've become attached to despite having no business being part of her life. Don't you dare use Lily as leverage, Iris said, her voice shaking with rage. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this. You made her part of it when you decided playing house here was more important than considering the consequences. Howard's mask of control finally cracked slightly, showing the anger beneath. You think I don't know what you're doing? You're trying to build some alternative family to replace the one you walked away from. But this isn't real, Iris. This is temporary desperation disguised as independence. And when it falls apart, as it will, you'll have hurt these people for nothing. You're the one hurting them, Iris shot back. I was living here peacefully until you decided you couldn't tolerate your daughter making her own choices. Your choices affect other people. When will you understand that? Howard gestured around the apartment. This man, this child, they're not your social experiment. They're real people with real lives that don't need the chaos you bring. Noah had heard enough. He stepped forward, putting himself between Howard and Iris, and when he spoke, his voice was low and hard. You need to leave. Now. Howard looked at him with something approaching pity. Mr. Carter, I'm trying to help you see reason. You're trying to intimidate me in my own home. You're threatening my daughter to control yours. That's not reason. That's abuse. So I'm telling you one more time, leave. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Noah was very aware of the differences between them. Wealth, power, connections, everything that usually determined who won these kinds of confrontations. But this was his home, his daughter, and he'd be damned if he let some rich man bully him on his own floor. Howard finally nodded, smoothed his suit. Very well, but understand this isn't over. The custody hearing is scheduled for next week. I'd suggest you get a lawyer, though I doubt you can afford one who'll make much difference against mine. He turned to Iris. And you, think very carefully about whether your pride is worth destroying the life of a child who's already lost her mother, because that's where this is heading. He left with Richard Chen trailing behind, and the door closing felt like the end of a storm's first wave, not the end of the storm itself. The moment they were gone, Iris turned to Noah with devastation written across her face. I'm so sorry. I never thought he'd actually go after Lily. I thought threatening was as far as he'd go. You don't know your father as well as you think you do, Noah said, his own fear manifesting as anger. He just threatened my daughter in my living room. He's actually going to try to take her from me. We'll fight it. We'll get a lawyer. We'll show the judge. Show them what? That I'm a mechanic who can barely pay rent? That I work nights and leave my kid with neighbors? That I let a stranger move in without doing proper background checks? Noah ran his hands through his hair, feeling control slipping away. He's right about one thing. We're not in the same league. He can bury me in legal fees before we even get to court. Then we get Maria to write more articles. We make it public that he's using a child as leverage. And he spins it as a concerned grandfather looking out for a little girl being raised in unstable conditions. Noah sank onto the couch, the full weight of the situation crushing down on him. This is bad, Iris. This is really bad. She sat beside him, reached for his hand. He let her take it, even though part of him wanted to pull away, wanted to blame her for bringing this into their lives. I'll leave, Iris said quietly. Today. Right now. I'll pack my things and go somewhere he can't find me. Then he'll have no reason to come after you. Except he's already filed the papers. Leaving now just makes it look like you're running away from consequences, which plays into his narrative about poor judgment. Then what do we do? Noah didn't have an answer. For 3 years, every problem he'd faced, money, loneliness, exhaustion, had a solution, even if it was just working harder or sleeping less. But this? He couldn't work his way out of this. Couldn't fix it with determination or stubbornness or love. I need to call someone, he said finally. There's a guy at the garage. His sister's a family lawyer. Maybe she'll at least tell me how bad this actually is. He made the call from his bedroom, explained the situation to a woman named Jennifer Park, who listened without interrupting and then sighed heavily. Okay, I'm going to be straight with you, Jennifer said. Can he actually get custody? No, probably not. You're the biological parent, you have stable employment, there's no evidence of abuse or neglect. But can he make your life hell trying? Absolutely. And more importantly, can he get supervised visitation requirements or temporary custody changes while the case is investigated? That's possible, especially if he's got documentation and you don't have representation. How much would representation cost? From a lawyer who could actually stand up to Howard Bennett's legal team? More than you can afford. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, but that's the reality. I can help with paperwork and basic defense, but if this goes to a real fight, you need someone with resources. Which I don't have. Which you don't have. Unless... Jennifer paused. The Legal Aid Society sometimes takes cases like this. Abuse of power, wealthy individual manipulating the system. It's a long shot, but it's better than nothing. Noah thanked her, hung up, and sat on his bed staring at nothing. Through the door, he could hear Iris moving around the apartment, probably packing like she'd said. Part of him wanted to stop her. Part of him wondered if she was right, if her leaving was the only way to protect Lily from this mess. But Howard's words kept echoing in his head. When it falls apart, you'll have hurt these people for nothing. Was that what this was? A temporary situation that was always doomed to fail? Had he been stupid to think that what they'd built here could withstand the real world? That love and determination were enough against money and power? A knock on his door pulled him from his spiral. Noah? Can I come in? Yeah. Iris entered, closed the door behind her. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and her face was blotchy. But she looked determined now, focused. I talked to the lawyer who helped my friend. She's willing to take your case pro bono. She specializes in fighting exactly this kind of abuse of power. Iris sat beside him on the bed. And I called Maria. She's already working on a follow-up article about your father using custody battles as intimidation tactics. If we go public with the hearing, it puts pressure on the judge to be fair. Or it makes me look like I'm using a kid for publicity. It makes my father look like he's using a kid for control. That's different. Iris took his hand. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we can't let him win just because he's rich and we're not. That's exactly what he's counting on. It's not just about winning, Noah said, frustrated. It's about Lily. If this goes wrong, if I lose even temporary custody while the case plays out, do you know what that does to her? She's already lost her mother. She can't lose me too. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. We fight smart, we get ahead of his narrative, and we show the judge exactly what this is. A grandfather using his resources to punish his daughter by hurting innocent people. Noah wanted to believe it could work. Wanted to trust that the system would see through Howard's manipulation. But he'd lived enough life to know the system was built for people like Howard Bennett, not people like him. "What if it's not enough?" he asked quietly. "What if we do everything right and he still wins?" Iris was quiet for a long moment. "Then at least we tried. At least we didn't just roll over and let him take everything without a fight. And Lily will know when she's older, when she understands, she'll know you fought for her. That matters." It did matter. Noah knew that. But it didn't make the fear any less paralyzing. They sat together on his bed, both terrified of what was coming, both trying to believe they had a chance. Outside, Monday morning continued. People going to work, kids going to school, the world spinning on like nothing had changed. But in Noah's small apartment, everything had changed. The careful life he'd built, the fragile peace they'd found, it was all on the line now. At 8 o'clock, Noah called Eddie to tell him he couldn't come in, that he had an emergency. Eddie didn't ask questions, just told him to take whatever time he needed. Then Noah made coffee and sat with Iris at the kitchen table, and they started making a plan. The lawyer, her name was Diane Chen, no relation to Richard, arrived at 10. She was younger than Noah expected, maybe early 30s, with an efficient manner and sharp eyes that immediately assessed the apartment. "All right, let's see what we're dealing with," she said, pulling out a laptop. Howard Bennett filed emergency custody papers claiming unsafe living conditions and parental negligence. The hearing is Thursday, which doesn't give us much time, but it's also rushed enough that we can argue he's trying to railroad the process. "Can he actually get custody?" Noah asked, even though he had already asked Jennifer the same question. In an emergency hearing, temporary custody or supervised visitation is possible if the judge believes there's immediate danger to the child. Full custody? Extremely unlikely without evidence of serious abuse or neglect, which he doesn't have. Diane typed something, frowned at her screen. But he's got declarations from 3 parents at Lily's school expressing concern, a building inspector's report showing code violations in this apartment, and documented evidence of your financial struggles. The building violations aren't my fault. I know. And the financial struggles aren't evidence of bad parenting, but together it builds a picture. We need to build a counter picture. Diane looked up. "I need character witnesses, people who can testify to your parenting, to Lily's well-being, to the stability of this home despite the financial challenges. Mrs. Chen next door, Lily's teacher, Eddie at the garage. He's known me for years." "Good. Get me their contact information. I'll prep them for testimony." Diane turned to Iris. "And you. You're the complication here. Howard's arguing that your presence represents instability and poor judgment." "I can leave," Iris started, but Diane interrupted. "Don't. That plays into his narrative. Instead, we present you as a stable, responsible adult who's been a positive presence in Lily's life. You have a job, you pay rent, you've helped with childcare in appropriate ways. We turn his weapon into our defense." "He'll bring up the Seattle arrest," Iris said. "Let him. Charges were dropped, no conviction, and you weren't actually involved in the criminal activity. It shows you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which most people can relate to, not that you're a danger to children." Diane made more notes. "The real fight here isn't about facts, it's about narrative. Howard wants to paint this as chaos and instability. We paint it as a single father doing his best with the resources he has, building community, and finding support in creative ways." "What about the media attention?" Noah asked. "He's going to use the articles against us." "Actually, the articles help us. They establish a pattern of Howard using his power to control and intimidate. We're not making this public. He made it public by stalking his daughter and threatening you. We're just defending ourselves in the court of public opinion while also defending in actual court." Diane stayed for 2 hours, taking notes, asking detailed questions about Lily's routine, Noah's work schedule, the living arrangements. By the time she left, Noah felt marginally better. At least they had a plan, someone who knew how to fight this kind of battle. But the better feeling didn't last long. That afternoon, Noah picked Lily up from school and found her crying in the principal's office. "What happened?" Noah asked immediately, kneeling in front of his daughter. "Some kids said mean things," Lily hiccuped through tears. "They said their parents said I might have to go live somewhere else because you're a bad dad." Noah felt rage so pure it was almost blinding. He looked up at the principal, a woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, who looked deeply uncomfortable. Parents have been talking, she said quietly, about the articles, about the custody case. Some of them are concerned. Concerned about what? My daughter is fine. She's happy. She's doing well academically. She has friends. I know, Mr. Carter, and I've told them that. But parents talk, and kids overhear things they don't understand. Mrs. Rodriguez glanced at Lily. Maybe we should discuss this in my office? Noah wanted to argue, wanted to demand she shut down the rumors and protect his daughter from this gossip. But Lily was looking up at him with complete trust, believing he could fix this, and he didn't want to shatter that by losing control. Come on, Bug, he said gently, picking her up even though she was getting too big for it. Let's go home. In the truck, Lily was quiet until they were halfway home. Then she asked, Am I going to have to leave? No, baby, that's not going to happen. But those kids said, those kids don't know what they're talking about. Their parents don't know either. This is all just grown-up stuff that got confused, and I'm fixing it, okay? Promise? Noah made another promise he wasn't sure he could keep. I promise. At home, Iris took one look at Lily's tear-stained face and immediately went into comfort mode, making hot chocolate, pulling out the art supplies, creating distraction through activity. Noah watched them at the kitchen table, Lily gradually relaxing as Iris listened to her explain what happened at school and felt his heart break a little more. This was what Howard wanted to destroy. This small, imperfect family they'd built from loneliness and necessity and something that had grown into real care. How could someone look at a child being loved and supported and decide it needed to be disrupted because it didn't fit the right image? That night, after Lily was finally asleep, it took extra time, extra stories, extra reassurance. Noah found Iris on the couch staring at nothing. She asked me if I was going to leave, Iris said without preamble. While we were drawing, just asked straight out if I was leaving like her mom did. What did you tell her? That I wasn't planning to, but that sometimes things happen we can't control. Iris looked at him with exhausted eyes. I didn't know what else to say. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to scare her more. Noah sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. This is my fault. How is any of this your fault? I let you move in without thinking it through, without protecting Lily from getting attached to someone who might disappear. Sarah died and left Lily devastated, and I promised myself I'd never let her get hurt like that again. And then I let her fall in love with you knowing your situation was complicated. You didn't let her do anything, Iris said firmly. Lily's her own person. She makes her own connections. And I'm not dead, Noah. I'm not leaving by choice. If I disappear from her life, it'll be because your father forced me out, and that's on him, not you. Semantics don't matter when you're 7, and someone you love is gone. They sat in heavy silence, both carrying guilt for different reasons. Finally, Iris spoke. When I was Lily's age, my mother left for 6 months. My father told everyone it was for her health, but really it was because she tried to divorce him. He convinced her she'd lose custody of me if she left, that he'd make sure she never saw me again. So she came back and just stopped trying, stopped fighting, became the perfect wife he wanted. Iris's voice was flat, reciting facts rather than feeling them. I remember that whole time thinking if I was better, if I was good enough, she wouldn't have wanted to leave. Took me years to understand it wasn't about me. Is that why you ran? Because you saw yourself becoming her? I ran because I saw myself disappearing, becoming whoever he wanted instead of whoever I was. Iris turned to look at Noah. But then I ended up here, and for the first time I felt like maybe I could be myself and still be wanted, like being ordinary was enough. You're not ordinary. To you and Lily, I am, just Iris, not Howard Bennett's daughter or a trust fund kid or someone with connections. Just the person who makes terrible pancakes and helps with homework and sits on the couch watching movies. She smiled sadly. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I had it. Noah took her hand, laced their fingers together. Then we fight for it. For this. For the right to be ordinary together. Even if fighting means losing? Even then. They fell asleep on the couch that night, tangled together like they could protect each other from what was coming. When Noah woke up at 3 a.m. with a crick in his neck, he carefully extracted himself and carried Iris to her room, tucked her in like he did Lily. She murmured something in her sleep but didn't wake. Standing in the doorway of her room, Noah let himself imagine for a moment that this could actually work. That they could win the custody hearing, that Howard would accept defeat and leave them alone, that the three of them could keep building this odd little family without the whole thing collapsing under the weight of the real world. It was a nice fantasy, but Noah had learned a long time ago that nice fantasies didn't pay bills or change outcomes. Reality was Thursday's hearing, and Howard Bennett's lawyers, and a judge who would decide whether Noah was fit to raise his own daughter. The next 3 days blurred together in a chaos of preparation. Diane prepped Noah for testimony, coached him on how to answer questions, warned him about tricks Howard's lawyers might try. Mrs. Chen and Eddie and Lily's teacher all gave statements. Maria wrote another article, this one focusing on Howard's history of using legal intimidation. Iris stayed mostly in the background, trying to be helpful without giving Howard more ammunition. Wednesday night, the night before the hearing, Noah couldn't sleep. He lay in bed running through Diane's instructions, imagining every possible question and answer, trying to prepare for something that felt impossible to prepare for. Around midnight, he gave up and went to the kitchen for water. Iris was already there, sitting in the dark. "Can't sleep either?" Noah asked. "Keep thinking about tomorrow, about all the ways it could go wrong." Noah sat across from her, the kitchen table between them like it had been for so many important conversations. "Diane says we have a good chance that emergency custody is rare without real evidence of danger." "Diane's optimistic. That's her job." Iris wrapped her hands around her mug of tea. "My father doesn't lose, Noah. He'll have thought of something we haven't, some angle we're not prepared for. Then we deal with it when it happens." "How are you so calm?" Noah laughed bitterly. "I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But I learned when Sarah died that falling apart doesn't stop bad things from happening. It just makes you less able to handle them when they do." Iris looked at him across the table, and Noah saw something shift in her expression. "I love you," she said quietly. "I know this is terrible timing, and we have enough to deal with without me adding that complication, but I needed to say it before tomorrow. In case—" "Don't," Noah interrupted. "Don't finish that sentence. We're going to be fine." "You can't know that." "No, but I can believe it." Noah reached across the table, took her hand, and for what it's worth, I love you too. Both of you, you and Lily. This weird little family we've made, I love it, and I'm going to fight like hell to keep it. They sat in the dark kitchen holding hands across the table, drawing strength from each other for whatever tomorrow would bring. When they finally went to bed separately, Noah felt marginally less terrified. Not confident, exactly, just less alone. Thursday morning arrived too fast and too slow. Noah dressed in the only suit he owned, a cheap one he'd bought for Sarah's funeral and hadn't worn since. In the mirror, he looked exactly like what he was, a working-class guy trying to dress up for people who'd see right through it. But it was the best he had, so it would have to be enough. Lily watched him adjust his tie for the third time, confused about why he was dressed up on a school day. "You look fancy," she said. "Are you going somewhere important?" "Yeah, Bug. Just a meeting. Mrs. Chen is going to pick you up from school today, okay?" "Okay." Lily hesitated. "Is the meeting about me?" Noah knelt down to her level, took her small hands in his. "The meeting is about making sure we can keep being a family, just you and me. But it's all going to be fine, I promise." Another promise, another wait. But what else could he do? At the courthouse, Diane met them in the lobby looking professionally fierce in her suit and heels. Howard was already there with Richard Chen and 2 other lawyers, all of them radiating expensive competence. Noah felt outclassed before they even entered the courtroom. "Don't let them intimidate you," Diane murmured. "This is just a hearing, not a trial. Answer questions directly, stay calm, and remember, you're the parent. You have the right to raise your own child." The judge was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Morrison, who looked tired before the hearing even started. She reviewed the papers in front of her, glanced at both parties, and sighed. "This is an emergency custody hearing requested by Howard Bennett regarding his granddaughter, Lily Carter. Mr. Bennett, your petition claims unsafe living conditions and parental negligence. That's a serious accusation. I hope you have serious evidence." Howard's lead lawyer stood, a man who introduced himself as Douglas Hamilton. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of financial instability, inappropriate living arrangements, and failure to provide adequate supervision. Let's hear it. For the next hour, Noah sat at the defendant's table and listened to his life be torn apart by people who'd never met him. They presented the building code violations, problems with wiring and plumbing that Noah had reported to the landlord multiple times but couldn't fix himself. They showed his late bill payments, his work schedule that required night shifts, the times Lily had been with neighbors instead of her father. They called it a pattern of negligence. They made it sound like Noah was barely holding on, like Lily was in danger every day. Then Douglas called Iris to the stand. "Ms. Bennett, you've been living in Mr. Carter's apartment for approximately 2 months, correct?" "Yes." "And you knew when you moved in that there was a child in the home?" "Yes." "Did Mr. Carter conduct any background check on you before allowing you to live with his daughter?" Iris hesitated. "No, but..." "Simple yes or no, please. No background check?" "No." "Did you disclose to Mr. Carter that you had been arrested in Seattle 2 years ago?" "The charges were dropped." "Yes or no, Ms. Bennett, did you disclose the arrest?" "Not initially, no." Douglas presented the arrest record, made it sound far worse than it was. Then he asked about Iris's estrangement from her family, implying instability. He asked about her transient lifestyle over the past 2 years, suggesting unreliability. He painted a picture of a woman with poor judgment who'd inserted herself into a vulnerable family situation. When it was Diane's turn to question Iris, she did her best to rehabilitate the testimony, but the damage was done. Howard's lawyers had made Iris look irresponsible, and by extension, made Noah look irresponsible for letting her near Lily. Then they called Noah. Douglas Hamilton approached with the confidence of someone who'd won cases like this 100 times before. "Mr. Carter, how many hours a week do you work?" "About 50, sometimes more." "And how many of those hours are night shifts?" 3 or 4 nights a week." "So you're regularly leaving your 7-year-old daughter alone at night?" "She's not alone. Mrs. Chen watches her." "Your neighbor, a woman in her 70s who you pay minimal amounts to provide childcare." "She's not just a neighbor, she's family." "But not actual family, correct? Not a licensed childcare provider?" The questions continued, each one designed to make Noah's life look chaotic and inadequate. His finances, his apartment, his work schedule, everything became evidence of failure rather than evidence of someone doing their best with limited resources. When Diane finally got to cross-examine, she asked about Lily's grades, her happiness, her health. She got Noah to explain that the building violations weren't his responsibility, that his financial struggles were the result of medical debt from Sarah's accident, not irresponsibility. She painted a picture of a devoted father making sacrifices for his daughter. But Noah could see the judge's face, could read the doubt there. Howard's lawyers had done their job well. The final witness was Mrs. Chen, who testified beautifully about Lily's well-being and Noah's dedication. But Douglas Hamilton countered by questioning her ability to provide adequate supervision at her age, implying she was a liability rather than an asset. Finally, after 3 hours, Judge Morrison called for a recess to review the evidence. Noah sat in the hallway with Diane and Iris, feeling numb. "How bad was it?" he asked. Diane was quiet for a moment. "I won't lie to you, they made a compelling case for instability, but we countered well. It could go either way." "What happens if she grants emergency custody?" "Lily would go to temporary foster care or possibly to Howard, while the full custody case is investigated. You'd get supervised visitation." Noah felt his world tilt. "How long would that take?" "Months, maybe longer." He put his head in his hands, trying to breathe through the panic. Iris's hand found his back, rubbing small circles, but nothing could make this better. Nothing could change the fact that in a few minutes a judge might decide he wasn't fit to raise his own daughter. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, they were called back into the courtroom. Judge Morrison looked at both parties with an expression Noah couldn't read. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented today," she began, "and I'm prepared to rule on the emergency custody petition." Noah's heart hammered so hard he thought everyone could hear it. "Mr. Bennett, I appreciate your concern for your granddaughter. However, concern alone doesn't warrant removing a child from her parents' care. The evidence you've presented shows a father struggling financially, yes, but not a father who's neglecting or endangering his child. Noah felt hope flicker weakly in his chest. That said, Judge Morrison continued, and the hope guttered, some of the concerns raised have merit. The living situation does need improvement, and I want verification that the child is in a stable environment. Here it comes, Noah thought. This is where she takes Lily away. Therefore, I'm denying the emergency custody petition. Lily Carter will remain with her father. However, I'm ordering a home study to be conducted within 30 days, and I'm requiring Mr. Carter to address the building code violations mentioned in the petition. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a follow-up hearing. It took a moment for the words to register. Denied. Lily was staying with him. Not forever. There were conditions, requirements, another hearing, but for now, she was staying. Thank you, Your Honor, Diane said, professional even though Noah could hear the relief in her voice. Across the courtroom, Howard Bennett's expression was unreadable, but his lawyers looked frustrated. They'd expected to win. They'd thought money and preparation would be enough. But today, it wasn't. Outside the courthouse, Noah finally let himself breathe. Iris hugged him hard and Diane shook his hand. This is good, Diane said. The home study is standard procedure. As long as your apartment is clean and safe, and Lily is clearly happy and healthy, you'll pass. And the follow-up hearing gives us time to build a better case. Is this over? Noah asked. For now, but be prepared. Howard Bennett doesn't strike me as someone who gives up easily. She was right, of course. But for today, in this moment, Noah had won. Lily was still his. They were still a family. He just had to figure out how to keep it that way. Noah picked Lily up from Mrs. Chen's that afternoon, feeling lighter than he had in weeks, even though he knew the fight wasn't over. His daughter ran to him the moment she saw him, wrapping her arms around his waist with the kind of fierce love that made everything else worth it. Did your meeting go okay? She asked, looking up at him with those eyes that were so much like Sarah's. It went good, Bug. Really good. So we're still a family? Just us? Noah crouched down to her level, smoothed hair back from her face. We're always going to be a family. That's never changing. I promise you that. Lily hugged him again, and Noah held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and elementary school cafeteria and everything that meant home. When they finally pulled apart, Mrs. Chen was standing in her doorway, watching them with misty eyes. You won? She asked. For now. There's another hearing in 2 months, and they're doing a home study, but Lily stays with me. Banlan. Mrs. Chen clasped her hands together. Good. That man had no right trying to take your baby. No right at all. Back at the apartment, Iris was cooking dinner. Actual cooking, not the simple meals they usually threw together. The kitchen smelled like garlic and herbs, and she'd set the table with real napkins instead of paper towels. What's all this? Noah asked. Celebration, Iris said simply. We won. That deserves more than takeout. Lily immediately started helping, chattering about her day at school, while Iris listened with genuine interest. Noah watched them move around the kitchen together, the easy rhythm they'd developed over the past 2 months, and felt that dangerous hope again. The kind that made you think maybe things could actually work out. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Lily told stories that went nowhere. Iris teased Noah about his courtroom tie, and for a few hours they pretended that nothing was hanging over them, that they were just a normal family having a normal Thursday night dinner. After Lily was in bed, Noah and Iris cleaned up together in comfortable silence. When the last dish was put away, Iris turned to him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I need to tell you something, she said. Noah's stomach dropped. What? My father called while you were getting Lily. He wants to meet, just him and me. No lawyers, no threats. He said he has something he wants to say. It's a trap. Probably. But maybe it's also a chance to end this. Iris leaned against the counter, looking exhausted. I'm tired of running, Noah. I'm tired of fighting. If there's even a small chance that talking to him could make this stop, I have to try. What if he tries to force you to come back, or threatens you? Then I walk away. But I have to at least hear what he has to say. She moved closer, took his hands. I won't let him hurt you or Lily anymore. I promise. But this has to end somehow, and maybe this is how. Noah wanted to argue, wanted to forbid her from going anywhere near Howard Bennett, But Iris wasn't his to control, and trying to dictate her choices would make him no better than her father. When? He asked instead. Tomorrow. Lunch at some restaurant downtown. Public place, lots of witnesses. Safe as it's going to get. I'm coming with you. Noah? Not to the meeting, but I'll drive you. Wait nearby. If anything goes wrong, you call me immediately. Deal? Iris looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Deal. That night, Noah barely slept again, imagining all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. When morning finally came, he was exhausted but wired, running on anxiety and coffee. He dropped Lily at school with extra hugs and promises to pick her up on time, then drove Iris downtown to a restaurant that was definitely outside his usual price range. I'll be right here, he said, parking across the street where he could see the entrance. You call if you need anything. Iris kissed him quickly, a brush of lips that felt like both hello and goodbye. I'll be fine. This is just talking. Noah watched her walk into the restaurant and then settled in to wait, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Inside the restaurant, Iris found her father already seated at a corner table, looking composed and powerful in his expensive suit. He stood when she approached, and for a moment they just looked at each other, this man who'd shaped her entire life, and the daughter who'd spent 2 years trying to escape that shaping. Iris, thank you for coming. I'm here. Say what you need to say. Howard gestured to the chair across from him. Iris sat, keeping her posture defensive, ready to leave at the first sign of manipulation. I want to apologize, Howard said, and Iris felt her carefully constructed walls shake at the unexpectedness of those words. Not for caring about you, not for trying to find you, but for the way I went about it, for threatening Mr. Carter and his daughter. That was wrong. You're right, it was wrong. I was angry and hurt. When you left, it felt like you were rejecting everything I'd built, everything I'd tried to give you. Howard's voice was carefully controlled, but Iris heard real emotion underneath. I see now that you weren't rejecting the life I built. You were trying to build your own. It took you 2 years in a custody battle to figure that out? It took me seeing you yesterday. In that courtroom, watching you testify, seeing how you've chosen to live. Howard paused. You were happy, Iris. Genuinely happy, in a way I haven't seen since you were a child. And I realized that everything I thought I was protecting you from, the modest apartment, the ordinary people, the simple life, those were actually the things that made you happy. Iris felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back furiously. So what? You're here to give me your blessing to be poor and ordinary? I'm here to ask if there's any way we can find middle ground. I can't pretend I understand your choices. I can't say I approve of walking away from the opportunities you had, but I also can't keep destroying your life every time you try to live it differently than I planned. Then stop. Just stop trying to control everything and let me go. I don't know how to do that, Howard admitted, and it was possibly the most honest thing he'd ever said to her. You're my daughter, my only child. The thought of you struggling, of you in danger, of losing you completely, it's unbearable. I'm not in danger. I'm not struggling. I'm happy. Iris leaned forward, willing him to understand. For the first time in my life, I'm actually happy. I wake up and make breakfast with a little girl who thinks I'm special just because I help her with fractions. I sit on a couch with a man who loves me for who I am, not what I represent. I live in a tiny apartment and worry about bills and have absolutely no power or prestige, and I've never felt more myself. Howard listened, and Iris watched him process this. Saw him trying to reconcile the life he'd imagined for her with the life she'd chosen. What about your photography? He asked finally. You were talented. You could have been successful. I still do photography. I take pictures of Lily's drawings and the sunrise from our crappy apartment window and the bodega cat on the corner. It's not in galleries, but it makes me happy. That's success too. They sat in silence for a moment, years of conflict and misunderstanding between them. Finally, Howard spoke again. I'm willing to drop the custody case, completely. No follow-up hearing, no home study, no more investigations into Mr. Carter's life. Iris felt hope and suspicion war in her chest. In exchange for what? Nothing. No conditions. I drop it because it was wrong to use a child as leverage against you. Howard met her eyes. But I'd like to ask something, not as a condition, but as a request. Can we try to have some kind of relationship? Not the one I wanted. Not me controlling your life. Just something. Occasional dinners, phone calls, you knowing you have family if you ever need help. It was more than Iris had expected and less than she'd feared. I need to think about it. That's fair. Howard pulled an envelope from his pocket, slid it across the table. This is a trust fund. It's been yours all along, but I was holding it until you came to your senses. I'm releasing it to you now. No strings attached. Use it however you want. Pay off Mr. Carter's debts, fix the apartment, save it for Lily's college. It's yours. Iris stared at the envelope, not touching it. I don't want your money. It's not mine. It's your mother's family money, set up for you before you were born. She'd want you to have it. Howard's voice softened. Please, Iris, let me do this one thing. Not to control you, but to support the life you've chosen. Iris picked up the envelope with shaking hands, opened it to see a statement showing more money than she'd seen in 2 years of running. Enough to solve every problem Noah was facing. Enough to give Lily security. Enough to build a real life instead of just surviving. Why now? She asked. Why not offer this 2 years ago instead of hunting me down? Because 2 years ago, I thought money would bring you back. I thought if you struggled enough, you'd realize you needed what I could provide. I was wrong. You don't need my money to be happy. But maybe having it will let you be happy without quite so much stress. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't everything Iris wanted to hear, but it was honest, and it was more than Howard Bennett had given anyone in a long time. I'll think about the relationship thing, Iris said finally. I can't promise anything, but I'll think about it. That's all I ask. They sat for a few more minutes, navigating the awkward territory of people who'd hurt each other, trying to find a way forward. When Iris finally left, she felt wrung out but oddly hopeful. Her father was still who he was, controlling, powerful, unable to fully let go. But he was trying, in his limited way, to accept her choices. That was something. Outside, Noah practically leaped out of the truck when he saw her. Are you okay? What happened? Did he threaten you? Iris laughed, surprising herself. He apologized. And he's dropping the custody case. She showed him the envelope. And he gave me this. Noah looked at the statement and she watched his face go through several emotions at once. Shock, relief, suspicion. What's the catch? No catch. It's mine. From my mother's family. He's releasing it. Iris, this is... Noah seemed unable to finish the sentence. This is life-changing money. I know, and I want to use some of it to help you. Pay off Sarah's medical bills, fix the apartment, set up a college fund for Lily, if you'll let me. Noah looked torn. That's your money, for your future. You're my future, Iris said simply. You and Lily, this apartment, this life, it's what I want. And if I can make it easier, more stable, why wouldn't I? Because accepting money from you feels like... Noah stopped, struggling with pride and practicality. I've spent 3 years being independent, taking care of Lily on my own. This feels like giving up. It's not giving up. It's accepting help from someone who loves you. Iris moved closer, took his hands. Noah, you've been carrying everything alone for so long. Let me help carry some of it, please. They stood on the sidewalk while traffic moved around them, and Iris watched Noah war with himself. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but we do it together. We decide together how to use it, what's best for Lily, how to build something that lasts. Together, Iris agreed. The drive home was quieter, both of them processing what had just happened. When they pulled up to the apartment building, Noah turned to her. Did you mean it? About us being your future? Every word. Then I have a question. Noah took a breath, looking nervous in a way Iris had never seen him. When this is all settled, when the custody thing is over and the apartment is fixed and everything calms down, would you want to make this permanent? Not just roommates, not just dating, actually permanent. Iris felt her heart stutter. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I don't have a ring. I barely have savings. I'm a mechanic with a 7-year-old and more baggage than anyone should have to deal with. But I love you, Iris. I love the life we've built together. And if you're willing, I'd like to build it officially, legally, forever. It wasn't a perfect proposal. There was no romantic setting, no careful planning, just two people in a beat-up truck outside a rundown apartment building, choosing each other despite everything that should have kept them apart. "Yes," Iris said, and then she was crying and laughing and kissing Noah like she could pour all her hope and relief and love into that single moment. "Yes, absolutely yes." They sat in the truck for a long time, holding each other, letting the reality of their decision sink in. They'd fought for this. They'd risked everything for the chance to build a life together. And somehow, impossibly, they'd won. That afternoon, they picked Lily up from school together, and Noah let Iris tell her the news. "Your dad and I have something to tell you," Iris said once they were home, Lily sitting between them on the couch. "We're going to get married, which means I'm going to officially be part of your family, if that's okay with you." Lily looked between them, processing. "So, you're not going to leave, ever?" "Not if I can help it," Iris promised. "And you'll be like my mom." The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Iris glanced at Noah, saw him nod slightly. "I could never replace your mom," Iris said carefully. "She was special and she loved you so much. But I'd like to be someone who loves you too, in my own way, like an extra parent maybe, if you want that." Lily thought about this with the seriousness of someone making a major decision. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but you have to promise to always help me with fractions because Dad is terrible at them." The tension broke, and they all laughed. Noah pulled both of them into a hug, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt like his family was complete instead of broken. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of practical changes. Iris hired a contractor to fix the apartment's code violations, not just patching them, but actually repairing the wiring and plumbing properly. Noah paid off Sarah's medical bills and cried when he made the final payment, feeling a weight he'd carried for years finally lift. They set up a college fund for Lily with enough money that she'd never have to worry about affording school. And slowly, carefully, they started planning a future that looked nothing like what either of them had imagined but felt more right than anything else ever had. The follow-up custody hearing came and went without drama. With the apartment fixed and Noah's finances stabilized, the judge dismissed the case entirely. Howard sent a brief congratulatory message through his lawyers, maintaining the distance Iris had requested but acknowledging the resolution. Maria Santos wrote a final article about the case, framing it as a victory for family rights against wealthy manipulation. It got picked up by national outlets, and for a few weeks Noah and Iris were minor celebrities, the mechanic and the runaway heiress who'd stood up to power and won. The attention was uncomfortable, but ultimately positive, putting enough public pressure on Howard that he formally announced he was respecting his daughter's choices and would no longer be pursuing any legal action. 3 months after the courthouse victory, on a Saturday morning in early spring, Noah and Iris got married in a small ceremony at City Hall. Lily was the flower girl. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears. Eddie made an awkward but heartfelt speech about Noah deserving good things, and Maria documented the whole event for a feel-good follow-up story. It wasn't fancy. There were no expensive flowers or designer dress or elaborate reception. Iris wore a simple white sundress she'd bought on sale. Noah wore the same suit from the custody hearing, and they exchanged rings that cost less than a week's groceries. But when they said their vows, promising to love each other through whatever came next, every word was genuine. At the tiny reception in their apartment, now fully renovated and feeling more like a home than Noah had ever thought possible, Lily clinked a spoon against her juice glass like she'd seen people do in movies. "I want to make a speech," she announced. "Go ahead, Bug," Noah said, grinning. Lily stood on a chair so everyone could see her, suddenly shy with all the attention. "I just wanted to say thank you to Iris for coming to live with us and making my dad smile again, and for helping with my homework, and for being my extra mom even though my real mom is still the best mom ever, and for making our family bigger instead of smaller." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Iris hugged Lily tight, whispering something that made the little girl giggle, and Noah felt his heart so full it physically hurt. That night, after everyone had left and Lily was asleep in her room, Noah and Iris sat on their small balcony watching the city lights. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain in the way all futures are, but no longer scary. They had each other. They had Lily. They had a home built not on money or status, but on the simple decision to keep showing up for each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Noah asked. "Giving up the wealth and privilege for this?" Iris thought about it, really thought about it. "Sometimes I miss small things. The certainty of security, maybe. The ease of having resources to solve problems. But then I come home to you and Lily, and I remember what I actually gave up. A life where I was constantly performing, constantly trying to be someone I wasn't. I traded performance for authenticity. That's not a loss." "Your father might disagree." "My father is learning to live with disappointment." Iris smiled. "We've actually been talking more. Carefully, with boundaries, but talking. He'll never fully understand, but he's trying. That's more than I expected." "Think you'll ever fully reconcile?" "I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't matter as much as it used to. I have a family now, you and Lily. I have a home that's mine because I chose it, not because it was given to me. I have a life that feels real." She leaned against Noah's shoulder. "That's enough. More than enough." They sat in comfortable silence, Noah's arm around Iris, both of them tired but content. Inside, Lily slept peacefully in her room, secure in the knowledge that her family was solid and safe. The apartment was small but paid for, with fixed wiring and no code violations. Noah's debts were cleared, his daughter's future funded, his heart no longer carrying the weight of doing everything alone. It wasn't the life either of them had planned. Noah never imagined he'd remarry, that he'd find love again after Sarah. Iris never thought running away would lead her to a cramped apartment and a ready-made family. But life rarely went according to plan, and sometimes the detours led to better destinations than the original route ever would have. Over the next year, their life found its rhythm. Noah kept working at the garage, but Eddie promoted him to senior mechanic with a raise that meant fewer night shifts. Iris started a small photography business, taking pictures of families and children, building something of her own that had nothing to do with the Bennett name. Lily thrived in school, secure and loved, her earlier fears about losing another parent fading as Iris proved day after day that she was staying. They had game nights and movie marathons and ordinary arguments about dishes and bedtimes. They navigated the complexities of blended family life, Iris learning to parent, Lily adjusting to new rules and new affection, Noah letting go of control enough to actually share responsibility. It was messy and imperfect and exactly what they all needed. Howard kept his distance but sent birthday cards and Christmas gifts. He and Iris met for lunch every few months, slowly building a relationship that would never be what he'd wanted but was better than nothing. He met Lily once, awkward and formal, trying to be a grandfather without really knowing how. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. On the anniversary of Iris moving in, Noah woke up to find her already awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how a year ago I answered an ad for a room to rent because I was desperate and running out of options. And now I'm married to you, co-parenting Lily, living the life I didn't even know I wanted." She turned to look at him. "It's strange how one decision can change everything." "You think you made the right decision?" "I think I made the only decision that led here. So yeah, definitely the right one." They could hear Lily starting to stir in her room, the sounds of a Saturday morning beginning. Soon she'd come padding out, demanding pancakes and attention, and their quiet moment would dissolve into the chaos of family life. But for now, Noah held his wife close and let himself feel grateful for the series of accidents and choices that had led them all to this moment. Later that day, while Lily was at a friend's house, Noah and Iris took a walk to the park, where they'd spent so many afternoons during those early, uncertain weeks. They sat on their usual bench, watching joggers and dog walkers and other families move through their own Saturday routines. "I've been thinking," Iris said, "about Sarah." Noah tensed slightly. They didn't talk about his late wife much, not because it was forbidden, but because the grief was still there, just quieter now. "What about her?" "About how she'd feel about all this. About us." Iris picked at a thread on her jacket. "Do you think she'd be happy that you found someone?" Noah considered the question seriously. "Sarah wanted me to be happy. She made me promise near the end that I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone, that I'd let myself love again if I found someone worth loving." He took Iris's hand. "I think she'd like you." You're stubborn and brave, and you love Lily almost as fiercely as she did. Yeah, I think she'd be happy. I hope so. Because I love being here, being part of this family. And I want her to know that I'm not trying to replace her, just honor what she built by helping it continue. She knows, Noah said with certainty he didn't entirely feel, but wanted to believe. And she's grateful. I'm grateful. They sat on the bench as the afternoon stretched into evening, talking about everything and nothing. About Lily's upcoming school play, about Iris's photography clients, about whether they should get a dog, or if that was adding too much chaos to an already chaotic household. Ordinary conversations about an ordinary life that felt extraordinary because they'd fought so hard to have it. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Noah pulled Iris close and kissed the top of her head. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For answering that ad. For staying when you could have run. For fighting for us when it would have been easier to give up. For loving Lily like she's yours. For making me believe I could be more than just a guy barely holding it together." Iris pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with tears she was trying not to shed. "You were never just barely holding it together. You were the strongest person I'd ever met, doing impossible things every single day. I didn't make you believe anything. I just saw what was already there." They walked home as the streetlights flickered on, hand in hand through their neighborhood that was slowly becoming more theirs than just a place they happened to live. Past the bodega where they bought groceries, past Mrs. Chen's apartment where she waved from her window, up the 3 flights to their door that still stuck unless you lifted while turning the key. Inside, their small apartment was warm and bright, full of Lily's drawings on the fridge and Iris's photographs on the walls and Noah's tools organized in the closet. It smelled like home, coffee and laundry detergent, and the vanilla candle Lily insisted they burn every evening. It looked like home, too, lived in and loved, every scratch and worn spot a memory of the life they were building together. When Lily came back from her friend's house, chattering about the games they'd played and the snacks they'd eaten, they all curled up on the couch for movie night. It was their Saturday tradition. The 3 of them choosing something they could all agree on, and then arguing good-naturedly when they inevitably couldn't. Tonight they settled on an animated movie about a girl finding her way home, and the irony wasn't lost on any of them. Halfway through, Lily fell asleep between them, her head on Iris's lap and her feet in Noah's. They let the movie play out, neither wanting to move and disturb her, content to sit in the flickering television light with this child they both loved. "This is it, isn't it?" Iris whispered. "This is the life we get." "Yeah," Noah whispered back. "This is it. It's good. It's perfect." And in that moment, in that apartment, with that sleeping child and the person he loved and the future they were building one ordinary day at a time, Noah meant it. Not perfect like magazines or movies or wealthy people with unlimited resources. Perfect like coming home after a long day and finding the people who matter, waiting for you. Perfect like inside jokes and shared routines and knowing you're not facing the world alone anymore. The past would always be there. Sarah's memory. Iris's complicated family. The struggles they'd overcome to get here. But the past didn't define them anymore. They got to write their own story now, and they were writing it together. Outside, the city continued its endless chaos. Inside, 3 people who'd all been lost in different ways had found each other and built something worth keeping. A home. A family. A life that wasn't easy or simple, but was theirs in every way that mattered. And that, Noah thought as he finally carried Lily to her bed and kissed her goodnight, was the happy ending neither he nor Iris had been looking for, but both desperately needed. Not an ending at all, really. Just a beginning disguised as one, the start of all the tomorrows they'd get to face together. As he climbed into bed beside Iris that night, she curled into him with the ease of familiarity, and Noah closed his eyes feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not just contentment or relief or gratitude, though he felt all those things, but actual, genuine happiness. The bone-deep certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, with exactly the people he was meant to be with. "Love you," Iris mumbled, half asleep already. "Love you too," Noah whispered back. And in the morning, they'd wake up and do it all again. Make breakfast, get Lily ready for school, navigate the small challenges and big joys of their ordinary, extraordinary life. They'd argue about whose turn it was to do laundry and laugh at Lily's terrible jokes and fall into bed exhausted at the end of the day. They'd plan for the future while living in the present, building something sustainable and real from the foundation of love and choice and commitment. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be hard days and difficult conversations and moments when the weight of responsibility felt crushing, but they'd face it together, and that made all the difference. This was their story. Not the one society expected, not the one written in fairy tales, but the one they'd chosen. The single father and the runaway heiress and the little girl who needed them both. The small apartment that became a home. The struggle that became strength. The fear that became love. And if that wasn't a happy ending worth fighting for, Noah didn't know what was.